Wang is a broke D-rank miner who spent his life just mining, after being hunted by the Jin family for a decade. He died like an NPC. Later, he respawns in a spark warship loaded with overpowered functions, and now he's mining titanium, dodging assassins, and clapping interstellar baddies for fun. But before any of this, in this age, starships represent some powers like traveling through the galaxy, and shipping baddies in a gigantic ship is every man's fantasy. But this story's hero Wang wonders about how many years has it been since he traveled to this era from 21st century. He is standing with his fellow group members, thinking about how his ending could have been perfect with the Warship game auxiliary system. Just then, a warning appears on their screen, alerting them to a high-energy reaction somewhere on the ship. But Wang, stuck in his usual gloomy mood, starts reflecting on his life and realizes how much effort he put into getting his dream ship, yet because of his own foolishness, he ended up being chased. He then checks the time and, like a hero about to make a final sacrifice, says that he failed to protect them. However, a teammate who had been on his side tries to comfort him, assuring him that they never regretted following him. Suddenly, the system prompts him with a question. Does he want to start his life over? And without a second thought, he quickly activates time reversal. After a while, he was reborn into a young fresh boy and realizes that he lived in a ship for 20 years. He thinks about how, in just 2 days, he will obtain a warship, but his identity will be exposed, and the Jin family will hunt him down for the next 10 years. However, as he keeps exploring, he stumbles upon an auxiliary system and notices a functional feature called Scan, which instantly grabs his attention. He quickly realizes that this feature will be incredibly useful, as it allows him to identify the quality and various components of different ships, giving him a significant advantage in understanding their strengths and weaknesses. Moreover, he finds a Mine Conqueror 2 near space mining, which hasn't been used for more than 100 years. Wang finds other functions unavailable, but can only activate them after he gets a spark warship that has potential. Afterward, he receives a communication request from a cutie. After he accepts it, a baddie with huge talents appears in front of him, and her name is Leah. He asks her if she is on duty again, but she replies that she is always on duty on the first week of the month. Later, he spends time working out and engaging in various physical activities to maintain his strength. After finishing his training, he heads toward the entrance of the asteroid belt mining area, where memories of his old enemy, She, come rushing back. It reminds him of how she had also found a way to cheat the system and eventually ended up in the same place. After that, people on different ships start bothering Wang, constantly trying to challenge or test him in various ways. However, she jokes that since Wang has defeated him so many times before, he should at least let him win this time. Too tired to argue, Wang simply tells his computer to convert their voices into text. Since the old mining ships are so weak that they can't even break through the lowest level steel plates, the competition between miners mostly involves flying around and mining. Moreover, the asteroid belt mining areas are famous for their dangerous routes, and the deeper miner go, the more valuable they are. In his previous life, Wang always found She to be a trouble, as he would track his movements and try to uncover his secrets. However, despite all his efforts, She's engine eventually overloaded and went out of control, leading to his untimely death in the end. Moreover, the asteroids are always in a dynamic state because of their different sizes and orbits, and on the outer part of asteroid belt, there is a layer of turbulence bent which consists of small and micro bodies that move fast. So, before mining operations, the companies send special salvage ships to remove this layer. Wang is in his ship, getting ready to remove the layer, and he tells the ship to turn off the gravity system and send all the power to the 8th layer. Then, he heads straight for the asteroid belt in front of him. Everyone watching thinks he is about to get himself killed, but instead, because of his past life experience, he destroys the asteroids in an instant, showing his incredible skill. Seeing that, Ugly She is shocked because it's something a normal person isn't capable of doing, but Wang thinks that he saved his life, so he won't trouble him again. Afterward, he decides to get down because he has to mine, and if he doesn't, others will start to suspect him. He wonders why energy crystals are important and realizes they help keep the system running. Once fully activated, the system's functions will need energy crystals to work. In his past life, he didn't have any energy crystals after activating the system. As he looks around, he notices this place is even deeper than he thought. He worries that if he goes any further, he might not be able to escape, but to be safe, he activates the external antennae to scan for targets. He then finds some copper gas mine which he finds rubbish. Then after 40 minutes he finds a titanium mine, which can help build an iPhone. He wonders how the gas has turned solid and soon realizes that it is even more valuable than a copper mine. However, when he examines the titanium mine, he notices something unusual about it, as its extreme toughness makes it difficult to extract. After spending 5 exhausting hours working through the challenges, he finally manages to gather 100 tons of titanium. Then, after 10 hours of searching, he finally finds a small piece of energy crystal ore inside a large copper mine. Later, he returns to his ship and decides to remove the last layer of crystal using a hammer. But it takes him 3 hours to finish, so he sets off to find the Spark warship Tomahawk. Afterward, the detectors and communicators of the warship try to attack him using particles, which are basically similar to electromagnetic interferences. They only attack anything within their range, except for visible light, but all the wireless telecommunications devices are ineffective. After getting closer to the ship freely, Wang informs his ship to turn off the communication system and engines. Wang then enters inside the ship and finds a bunch of robots, realizing they were launched 40 years ago and they can perfect combat according to the user. Wang then moves to another floor with the robots, where he sees a bearded Elon Musk sitting in a terrible state. Yuan tells Wang to come closer since he can't move, but Wang decides to put on an act. He says that even if Yuan hadn't been stabbed in the heart, he still wants to know why he was invited in such a way. However, Yuan tells him that he injected himself with the military stimulant, but Wang don't suggest that if he find a good hospital now then he can survive. Nonetheless, Yuan tells him to stop looking around because there is no one else on the ship, explaining the wound caused by the heart-killing blade of the Jin family can't be cured. But Wang replies that he should let him go since he is just an ordinary miner with no family to support. Nonetheless, Yuan tells him that he has killed 3 collateral descendants of the Jin family, and once they find out that Wang boarded this warship, they will come after him and kill him. Wang quickly realized that he is talking about that family who's famous for taking revenge even for smallest grudge. He explains some cases where they took revenge on a girl and made their entire family suffer for that, even their generations. Yuan advises him to pay more attention to them because they are freakier and disgusting than him. However, Wang knows this very well because he was chased by them for the past 14 years. Suddenly, Yuan goes insane and tells Wang that before he dies, he will hand over the authority of the captain to him. However, Wang has different plans. He explains that this Spark warship is the symbol of utmost power of civilization and he always dreamed of having a warship on his own. So, he wants to achieve all the goals himself, because he wants to leave the country and study at the Federation Academy, who will give him the warship by themselves. Just then, Yuan asks him if he won't accept his gift, but Wang says that with his current identity, if he has a Spark warship he will die. Suddenly, Yuan starts laughing, saying he is older than him, so he knows more people and everything. Yuan further says that he chose the right person, but Wang thinks he passed the test too easily. And he knows Yuan isn't the type to give chances so easily. In his previous life, if Yuan wasn't satisfied, he would have killed him without hesitation. Suddenly, the robots behind Wang grab him and the small ugly robot stabs him with the Yuan family's secret poison. Yuan then gives him the authority of captain of the Spark warship, but in return, Wang must kill a descendant of the Jin family. Afterward, Wang asks if he have anything else to tell, realizing he can still kill him if he wants despite having 2 armored guards to protect him. Yuan replies that he has a request, saying he wants his soul to be with this ship forever, but Wang replies that given what he said, Tomahawk is being hunted now, so he hopes to find a solution soon. However, Wang realizes that if he made this request in his previous life instead, he manipulated Tomahawk and as a result they found the ship. Afterward, he instructs the ship to switch to silent running and release mini drones and hide them in surroundings. Seeing that, Yuan asks him if he has manipulated a warship before, but Wang replies that he is a big fan of a game and has played it for more than 3,000 hours like a geek. Wang then asks Yuan why the warship has only one main cannon, wondering if the ship's firepower is too weak. But Yuan explains that for low-level people, a warship's attack is always stronger than its defense, which can be a threat to its own safety. However, as civilization advances, the strength of a warship's defense surpasses its attack, and that's why there is an energy shield designed to protect it. So, the Sparks can only have one main cannon slot and there's nothing anyone can do about it. Yuan explains that their ancestors were part of the seed fleet of a defeated civilization. This means that when a civilization is on the verge of collapse, it sends out a seed fleet to ensure its development continues. Afterward, Wang asks what kinds of creations can be used as a module in a warship, but Yuan replies that there are no specific conditions for that. However, he mentions that there is a certain belief followed in the manufacturing process. Later, he explains that Tomahawk is the most ordinary ship in his family, but when Jin family attacked his family, they destroyed more than 10 advanced warships. He then tells Wang that after he get antidote, he should change his name to a princess and live somewhere else. However, Wang acts like a devoted man and tells him that he will destroy the Jin family because he doesn't want to die in a locked-up room. Afterward, the system activates, and Wang suddenly realizes that the entire structure of the warship and the condition of each module are now in his mind. Soon after, Yuan struggles to take his final breath before eventually succumbing to his injuries and passing away. Seeing no other option, Wang makes the decision to send Yuan's body into the engine compartment, allowing it to be completely consumed by the heat of the reactor until nothing remains but ashes. Afterward, Wang leaves the warship using his ugly small spaceship, realizing that as long as he is within the effective range of quantum brainwave, he can remotely control Tomahawk. The next day, he wakes up on his planet and realizes that he was not this comfortable in his previous life, and now he needs to find some energy blocks. However, he feels frustrated after knowing that 100 blocks are required for Pegasus Drive each time. To get the energy he needs, he has to buy it through underground channels, but he has suffered a huge loss because of this before. On top of that, it was the leader who reported his abnormal situation, and that person was Hayaz, the leader of the 4th Merchant Fleet. After taking a shower, he decides to relax by playing Galaxy Journey and heads to the internet cafe. Wang then logs in the game and turns out he is the captain of a mass-produced Scouter-class destroyer warship, but turns out his current power ranks below 99% of players. He then decides to begin a random one-on-one match. His opponent is none other than a female this time. She quickly instructs her ship to attack him, but Wang dodges, using all kinds of control thrusters present in his ship. She starts calling him a loser, saying he is nothing but a mere cockroach who can't fight on his own. Afterward, he switches the ship to manual mode, but she switches and attacks with her main gun. However, Wang is quicker than her, and just before she can attack, he switches positions and fires a shot at her warship. After winning the game, he gets a message from his side chick, telling him to practice with her since she has learned a new tactic. Moreover, he met Rabbit on the internet in his previous life, and she was his first teacher in controlling the warship. He strictly tells her not to call him by his first name because he is 2 months older than her. He then asks her if she is the student from the Royal Celestial School of Higher Education in Redbud Kingdom, but she replies that she is a freshman but will become a sophomore in a few months. She then dismisses his concerns and tells him to forget about it, insisting that he is far too weak to handle such a challenge. Despite her words, Wang remains determined and silently makes up his mind to save up enough money so that he can eventually join the school. The next day, Wang cries about how he has to finish the day as soon as possible because he have to make time for Tomahawk. He then hears Ugly She talking about a Spark warship he saw the other day, but Wang realizes that it could be the Spark warship of the Jin family. Just then, the baddest man on the planet asks if they think that the warship of the Jin family will care about losers like them. Later, Wang collects enough ores in advance and decides to find a way to upgrade Tomahawk. After entering the warship, he realizes that the system consumes only 1 unit of low-level energy crystal per month so that it can capture signals from different universes. Just then, he receives a signal from another universe, saying that the battlefield is ready for him. Afterward, he enters another universe and the system detects enemies, but he wonders that when the ship is below level 5, there is high probability of encountering Type I interstellar civilization on the battlefield in another universe. Wang then activates his inspection radar and detects a strange-looking interstellar civilization. He realizes that when warships have strengthened 2 or 3 modules, they focus on acquiring as many source points as possible. However, once they reach a certain level of combat power, they will inevitably encounter even more powerful civilizations. Moreover, when 2 warships encounter, identity verification is needed, but the name of warship cannot be fake. Afterward, he moves his warship over the civilization and decides to wipe out every last one of them, showing no mercy. He spends 20 hours destroying these planets, but 2 still remain, so without wasting time, he quickly destroys them as well. However, when he continues attacking another planet, he notices that his attacks aren't having much effect, and to make things worse, he has already run out of ammunition. Moreover, there are thousands of warships forming a second front, slowly advancing in an arc. Wang knows that the enemy is very decisive, and knowing that the defense line composed of a small fleet could not stop Tomahawk, Wang tries to rename the warship, but the system prompts him to enter a new name. At first, he decides on Dawn, but the system rejects it, saying the name is already taken. He tries multiple other names, but each one gets rejected. Frustrated, he considers naming it Pond or Bathtub, but the system misreads it as Bathtub and asks if he is sure. After struggling with so many issues, he finally spends 2,000 source points and successfully names it Pond. Afterward, he repairs all the armor on the warship, seeing that Wang thinks that Spark is awesome because it can directly repair the warship with source points. Afterward, all the damage caused by Jin family has repaired and both major flows disappeared. Furthermore, he believes that Pond has cleared its name but is a low-life miner. He has no way to explain how he obtained the warship if someone discovers it. Once the restoration is complete, he upgrades the armor from level 1 to level 2. Even though it costs a lot of resource points, he doesn't mind since he had gathered them all specifically for upgrading. After upgrading Pawn to level 7, he realizes that it is completely different from Tomahawk because it now has new functions. Seeing this, he decides to upgrade the Quantum Brainwave to level 2. After upgrading several things to new levels, he has 117 resource points left, but he decides to save it for future upgrades. Meanwhile, Delang tells Deco that he is worried Yuan might hurt him again. However, Deco loses his cool and snaps, saying that he was already injured and couldn't fight back. Delang then informs him that their family's wanted targets are Tomahawk and Shu, but his main priority is finding the warship first. After arguing for a while, Delang tells Deco that he has been looking to see what he got and leaves the call. Deco is now dedicated to getting the legendary module of Tomahawk. Meanwhile, Wang attends his class reunion, hoping to gather some news about the Jin family. He then asks his friend if there's any chance for him to improve himself, but his friend replies that it's not easy since most high-ranking jobs, like team leader positions, have already been reserved. Afterward, they start playfully cuddling, but Ling and Ziking arrive and question whether it's okay for guys to cuddle in public. However, his beside Lin Feng only cares about the baddies, but then Jen arrives and informs that it's hard to reach higher class, but they can if they support each other. Later, she tells Wang that he should help her at the party as well, and then instructs Ling to make all the children work for the Baron of Blackstone since her father is the sheriff. In the end, she reveals to Wang that Highland only allows candidates from Blackstone, but she knows someone who can take them all in, none other than Hayaz, the leader of the 4th Merchant Fleet. Afterward, Wang doesn't expect Hayaz to contact her, but when he does, she tells them that she has the right to form her own team and that they can enjoy special privileges in Astra Square. However, Ziking questions her, wondering if Hayaz is really just a merchant and whether he actually has the power to reserve talent selection. But Zhang replies that it's not difficult to obtain the right to recommend reserve talents. Zhang then realizes that they are falling for her lies and she can manipulate them into forming an ideal team. However, Wang points out that Astra Square has been a noble state for 1,000 years, and due to Hayaz's weak talent and lack of perseverance, he has always been broke and hasn't managed his land properly for over 20 years. Wang further suggests that she should back out because she is young and if she gets involved, she might be crushed. Hearing that, Zheng freaks out and leaves the place, warning that she will make Wang pay if it turns out to be true. But Ling informs Wang that last night her father mentioned another spark ship near the mining planet, so she advises him not to go out mining for a while. Sometime later, Wang remembers that in his past life, Delang attacked the entire mining region without any reason. He then discovers the Sakali ore, a rare mineral that contains energy crystals inside. His ship notifies him that someone is offering a reward in exchange for valuable information, but Wang quickly realizes that Delang's tricks haven't changed. Meanwhile, on Delang's ship, he receives a report stating that they have gathered a total of 123,000 pieces of intelligence. The most important detail is that the 4th Merchant Fleet of Astra Square has been seen near the mine region. The second is that a spark warship has been wandering around, but Delang asks his assistant if the most possible one is Merchant Fleet of Astra Square. So he replies that Yuan has been dead and Tomahawk is under no control and local forces have the highest probability to get remains of the ship. However, he suspects that Deco and Zhangda might make a move before them, but Delang plans to trick Deco into making the first move. Meanwhile, Deco is losing his mind, growing more impatient by the minute, telling his assistant to get him Zhangda. On the other hand, Wang is on a video call with Zheng, who isn't wearing any clothes. She realizes that the Sima family has already started taking action against Hayaz. Even so, she thanks Zheng for being honest with her about Hayaz. Then, she mentions his upcoming visit to the mine planet, saying that this time, she will increase the purchase orders by 20%. She also informs him that in 5 days, he will be leaving the mine region. Before ending the conversation, Wang adds that someone else has been asking about him, and she is quite sure it's Zhangda from the Jin family. Afterward, Wang decides to focus on work and collect more crystals and plans to disintegrate the ores he gathered earlier to build up his energy reserve. Later, everyone gathers in one place because Zheng has called them for a meeting. They tell him that Hayaz will seek revenge, but Wang responds that Hayaz can't do anything to them since he is an outsider, and if anything goes wrong, Zheng will take care of it. However, Zheng points out that now that the shark merchant has made a move, other fleets will also get involved. Wang, however, replies that it is rare for local forces in mining to act together. Moreover, Zheng says that she has always paid attention to promotion channels, but higher class is unrealistic in Redbud Kingdom. But Ling responds by saying that her father once mentioned that public security conditions in the Federation are better. However, Wang argues that the privileged class in the Scaparius Federation values reputation just as much as its counterpart in the Redbud Kingdom. He then adds that Blackstone is far from the core of the Federation and questions how they can possibly cross such a vast distance measured in light years. Wang knows that promotion is a goal for everyone, but having temporary passion is not enough, so he hopes that they adjust themselves, then he can organize his own team after he returned to the Baron of Blackstone's mansion. Sometime later, the youth agency sends Wang their luxury car for 15 days, which costs nearly 80,000 orams to rent this car for half a month. Wang reaches towards his warship and next plans to disguise a robot on the warship as him and let it drive to different spots. He then leaves the mining area and realizes that Pond is no longer the Tomahawk that needs to hide from the Jin family's tracking. However, since he doesn't have enough crew members or supplies, his level 7 warship is practically useless and can't operate at full strength. Meanwhile, the combat power of the 2 Spark warships from the Jin family is at levels 11 and 12, while the warships in Hea's fleet are both at level 10. He wonders that he had been chased for 10 years in his previous life and has rich experience in pursuing others, but even if he is not flying fast, he is still closer to Hea's fleet. More importantly, the fleet ahead of his ship has been quiet for a few days and he is almost down with oars. Suddenly, he runs to the control panel and tells the pawn to be invisible and catch others at full speed. Meanwhile, Heaz realizes that some warships of local forces have been chasing him for a while now, and just then his ship gets attacked by one of the warships. Afterward, Wang notices that Deco's warship has an additional module. Once activated, it enhances the next 3 cannonballs. All the other warships start firing at Deco, but their attacks have no effect since his warship is protected by a shield. Meanwhile, DeLang believes that Deco is the best choice to take the lead. However, Wang thinks that even with Deco's sudden attack and DeLang's firepower, they still won't be able to disrupt the strength of the Spark warship. Just then, all the warships charge tons of cannonballs at Deco and their shield manages to decrease to 12%. Deco then activates the additional modules and launches high-speed cannonballs, but still his shield decreases even more. Zhangde fires a green attack that causes continuous damage. Seeing this, DeLang starts laughing because it's a green-class special cannonball from the main gun. Meanwhile, Zhangde realizes that he is not the captain and that the warship is full of Deco's loyalists. Deco is set on following his own path, leaving Zhangde with no choice but to come up with practical strategies to win with the least cost. Meanwhile, Wang enjoys his wine, thinking that Hea's merchant isn't weak. However, Zhangde's neutralizing cannonball and Deco's lightning turbocharger have already inflicted massive damage on a Spark warship in less than a minute. But Heaz pushes his assault ships forward, stating that his enemy was just lucky to destroy one of their warships, but they still managed to fight back successfully. He realizes that this time, the enemy isn't just a group of ordinary Star Bandit warships, it's a warship owned by the privileged class. Meanwhile, DeLang observes the battle and thinks that Deco made a quick decision by choosing to attack instead of staying on the defensive. But on the other hand, Zhangde's commander informs him that Deco's ship is holding back the enemy and buying them time. He suggests that their ship should adopt the ramming tactic, but Zhangde responds that they cannot make any decisions until Deco gives them new orders. Deep down, though, he knows he can't risk his own life right now, especially with DeLang watching him closely. Afterward, Deco attacks and destroys all the ships, realizing the Spark warship of the merchant is average but its assault ships are sitting targets. Afterward, Zhangde tries to strike a deal with the others, promising to give them 10% of the profit every time he makes a deal if they help him get through this situation. At first, they try to reject him with various excuses, but Zhangde quickly informs them that he has already sent a scout ship out of the area. He adds that the mining region has received his message and warns them that if they are defeated, they will bear the same responsibility as Astra Square for refusing to help. Turns out they actually helps him, and Wang on the other hand decides to follow them to get close to battlefield invisibly. Nonetheless, Deco thinks that they didn't crush them, so they were not as shocked, but his assistant replies that the new assault ship is very powerful and their ship is in bad condition and asks if they should change the strategy. He decides to use all 103 source points and start the emergency repair of the armor, and after shooting them he decides to retreat. Meanwhile, DeLang believes that Deco has earned his reputation for a reason, but his assistant argues that Deco's courage is nothing compared to his strategic thinking. Watching the situation unfold, Wang thinks that DeLang is pushing Deco to the edge for no reason. However, Heaz is losing his mind even more than Deco, and as he tries to leave, he suddenly realizes that the precious purple-class carrier module is still on his ship. But Zhangde tries to attack by firing cannons at him, completely destroying his ship. Seeing this, Wang feels that he has finally avenged himself. Meanwhile, DeLang tells Deco that he admires him greatly and suggests that he take a rest. On the other hand, Zhangde calls DeLang shameless, saying they can't reclaim the spoils unless they defeat him in a single move. However, even if he tries to attack, their 2 warships are no match for DeLang's ship. Just then, a robot grabs Zhangde and his assistant tells him that Deco no longer has to take responsibility. It's time for them to pay him back. At that moment, Delang receives a warning that neutralizing cannonballs are heading toward them, so he quickly orders them to dodge, but it's already too late. Deco, feeling frustrated, orders his warship to move toward the enemy and continue pursuing them. He soon realizes that Delang's warship is in even worse condition than his own. The engines are severely damaged, and the shield has been completely overloaded. But Wang realizes that there is a mini detector in that capsule, wondering that it should be sent out by Zhangde as he always leaves a way out. He then orders Pan to stop being invisible and get close to the enemy. On the other hand, Deco finds an uninhabited planet and decides to repair the warp drive, as he prepares the warship to return to the Scaparius Federation. His officers suddenly arrive and report that a Spark warship is approaching. He quickly orders them to ready the main gun, but it's already too late. At that moment, Wang fires and destroys him. However, Wang begins to wonder if both he and Delang disappear from this stellar region at the same time. Wang then looks at the stats and realizes that he got this purple class module, and its range and precision are almost 2 times as good as that of one on the pond. Basically, precision detection can discover the undetected modules with it, and he doesn't have to rely on luck to find carrier modules. He instructs Pond to consume 40 source points and replace the radar with an Explorer radar. Additionally, he notices that the warship's ammunition is almost depleted, with only energy crystals remaining from last time. After returning, he receives a message from Zhangde, revealing that the detector was not lost and that he has set up a backup route on the mining planet. Later, Wang reflects on how Zhangde, as a member of the Jin family, managed to restore his declining family business and elevate his status through hard work. He recalls how Zhangde ordered the assault ship to launch a counterattack against Delang, which is why the Jin family will never forgive him. Afterward, he visits Zhangde in the hospital, saying he is the one who called an ambulance when he heard an alarm. Zhangde wonders how he managed to hear the alarm from his intelligent medical equipment and notify the medical institution in time. He then realizes that Delang will seek revenge on his family, so he must send the news back as soon as possible. However, covert remote communication across regions requires a significant amount of money and secure channels. Wang tells him that he will pay the medical expense, but Zhangde replies that he still needs a large amount of money. Zhangde wonders that he has to tell him because he spent time and energy on a stranger and even paid the medical fees. Nonetheless, Wang responds that he will lend him 300,000 orams since he is in need and can repay it whenever he wants. Afterward, Wang injects an antidote in his body which can turn his small junior into bigger one, but the side effects is that he will feel drowsy. The next day, Jing calls him, asking if he knows about Heao's recent attack and how he got annihilated. She tells him to meet later, saying they should have a get-together. Then, she informs the others that almost everyone in Heao's fleet has been killed, except for a few scout ships. However, Ziking is frustrated because the 4th Fleet of Astra Square was stationed so close to the mining area. He worries that the Earl of Astra Square will take drastic actions in response. But Shang tells them not to worry about it because the Earl of Astra Square is in poor health and has many factions in his book to deal with. Moreover, Wang explains that Heao's didn't support anyone in Astra Square, but he specifically invited Zheng to take part in the talent selection. He adds that in recent years, due to the growing intensity of conflicts in Astra Square, its leadership has been unable to make firm decisions. That is why Zheng has become a target and the 3rd son of the Earl will take notice of her. Later, Wang asks his side chick Rabbit if she has any news update for him, but she replies that the biggest opposition party, Scaparius Federation, has changed from the National to Civilization Party. The leader of that party is Zhang Shengxiu. It looks like Wang knows him because he used to run for the president of Scaparius Federation and he was ahead in the poll in the early stage. However, due to his idea of sharing the original warships and body refining technique, he was accused of treason overnight and his part was regarded as illegal. Meanwhile, at the parking apron, Wang's 1-month buffer period for the carrier Spark on Pond has ended. Just then, an older man informs him that Kin can't keep his mine anymore and plans to sell it to Tiger Merchant. He also mentions that the profit-sharing system of the mining company will change in the future. Wang finds it surprising since Kin was once the biggest contractor in the mining area, but now he is struggling under pressure from Tiger Merchant. Moreover, Wang realizes that the Shark Merchant fleet is a family-based faction owned by another Kin. However, Kin used to rely heavily on the Shark Merchant fleet for support. Now, with the changing power dynamics, Wang wonders how this will affect the balance in the mining area. However, now the Shark Merchant can hardly protect itself, so no one cares about Kin's mining company. Later, after getting back to Tomahawk, Wang activates the Mirage system which can capture signals from different universes. He believes that with the help of the auxiliary system, he doesn't have to rush into the cosmic void or wait long to capture signals from different universes that appear randomly. Shortly after, he receives a signal from another universe to enter a battlefield. Without wasting a second, he quickly joins the fight. Afterward, Wang receives information about the mining area and realizes that it is completely isolated from the outside world, with no one around. Even the minerals collected there are only transported once every 3 months. He also learns that there are 3,000 ships in total, but only 10 of them are unarmored and can provide just one source point each. However, he tries his new mining radar and finds something. Wondering if a professional mining base like this even has special modules. After entering the universe, he grabs the 2 modules but decides to completely shoot down the planet since he has what he needs. After a while, he comes across a private ship, completely wrecked and drifting in space. He finds it strange. This kind of ship usually doesn't travel far from the planet, and it's definitely not suited for navigating a complicated area like the mining zone in the asteroid belt. However, when he looks at the person inside the ship, he realizes it's Qin Wanli, one of the sons of the shark merchant leader. He has seen him several times at school and remembers him as a kind person who once helped him with some problems. Afterward, Wang decides to help him, mentioning that the mining area is huge and he's surprised to run into him here. Ken, looking weak, explains that he had no choice but to flee into the mining area because he was being chased. Wang reassures him, saying there's no need to worry since no one dares to pursue people inside the mining area. Then, he asks if things have really gotten that bad after the shark merchant escaped. So bad that even powerful people can't protect themselves anymore. Ken sighs and explains that the deal was secret, and he was picked because his brother and sister were being watched. He adds that the enemy didn't pay much attention to him since he is an ugly dog. However, Wang happily tells him to stay at his ship for a few days as he will take him back when it blows over. 2 days later, Wang tells Qin Wanli that it's time to leave, but Qin Wanli responds that his guess was right. Chen Xiu must have assumed he died in the mining area and stopped waiting for him. After that, Qin Wanli leaves, and Wang goes back to the mining company, where some workers are chatting about how the tiger merchant has lowered the purchase price of all minerals by 10 points. Afterward, some people in black suits arrive and inform everyone that mining area belongs to the tiger merchant now, so they won't force anyone to work for their company but rather obey their rules. Moreover, he says that everyone has to pay the compensation for damaging the mining ships they rented. Wang decides to stop being a miner soon and quietly leaves the area, but some nerd-looking guy approaches him. He hands him over 2 documents, saying before he reply to these people will stay outside his house to protect him, and the documents are the business secrets of the company. Later, Wang reads the documents and is shocked to see that these people have hired a skilled accountant and are demanding 10% of his savings from over the years. The other document is a contract. If he agrees to serve as the chief navigator, he must assist the tiger merchant and complete the exploration in the mining area. Soon, he realizes that this job is dangerous, as even warships have to be extremely cautious while traveling through the depths of the mining area. Wang wants to call Ling and use her father's identity as the chief of the planet to suppress the tiger merchant, but now it seems he can only go to mining area. Just then, a man arrives and tells Wang to follow him because it's time for mining. When Wang steps outside, he realizes that instead of using a military armored ship, they have to take their own worn-out ships to go deep into the mining area. However, the officer tells them to keep quiet because they modified their ships and loaded them with a small one-time energy shield, which can protect them from powerful blows. But Wang realizes that there is no such thing as a one-time shield. It's actually a one-time sub-decay field shield, which is normally used on unmanned probes. After that, the man shows a document and tells them to form a formation later and take turns leading the fleet. Seeing this, Wang understands that the plan is designed based on the miner's abilities. Later, he gets on the ship and checks if there is a monitoring equipment but finds nothing. Meanwhile, a strange-looking man asks Xiu if the rumors about the titanium crystal mine are true. Xiu replies that back then, people had no idea there were new discoveries deep in the mines. But they still couldn't find anything because mining in the depths was too difficult. He then calls Fu and asks if the miners will cooperate. Fu replies that everything is going smoothly. The miners have weak armor, but once they reach the advanced stage, they will make sure none of them escape. Fu asks if there is a 66% chance that the treasure exists. But Xiu replies that for Zhang Guang, who is always cautious, 66% is still a low probability. However, if Zhang Guang has created a detailed exploration plan, then they can be sure that the treasure will also be found in the thinner areas. After that, Wang tells the bartender to give everyone a glass of wine to toast Fu for arranging the special energy shields for them. Just then, Fu orders everyone to prepare to go deeper into the mining area and let the miners explore the path ahead as planned. He assumes they don't want to waste the valuable energy shields while navigating, so they choose not to activate them. But Wang thinks that now it's his turn and the astronomical environment is getting more complicated because some miners may be forced to open the sub-decay field shields. Wang then tells Cao that there is a beautiful site in the mining area called the Nest. Deep down, Wang is actually giving him a hint. helping him find a suitable target and guiding them there on purpose. Afterward, they finally arrive at the nest but discover that there is no large celestial body near the hidden turbulence that could have existed for a long time. Nonetheless, Wang asks Fu why the Tiger Merchant installed sub-gravitational field shields on their airships, knowing that anyone who comes into contact with them will die. Hearing this, Zhu and Fu are shocked, wondering how Wang knows so much about these gravitational shields. However, Wang had purposely questioned them this way, hoping to show where he stood so that the other miners would turn against them. But Fu responds that they can't afford high-tech decay gravitational field shields. Instead, the shields they equipped on their ships are mature products with stable performance. However, everyone suddenly turns back and starts fleeing from Fu and the others, but the gravitational turbulence makes it harder for Wang to escape. On top of that, she loses control and crashes into a mine. Wang quickly realizes that she had believed his chosen airship was the best, but it turned out to be the worst. Its over-control thruster malfunctioned at the worst possible moment, leaving him helpless. Suddenly, Fu loses track of all the miners and urgently asks his team where they went. They respond that 2 of the mining ships managed to escape. 1 exploded, and the remaining 9 scattered in different directions when the incident occurred. Even so, Fu starts to panic, realizing that he can track their whereabouts using the inspection radar, but it only works at short distances. He then struggles with what to do next since they can't launch long-range attacks against the mining ships. Unsure, he wonders whether he should continue following them or just give up. Moreover, Wang manages to get inside Pond because it was following him invisibly all along. Wang regrets that they didn't retreat at full speed, knowing that the gravitational turbulence would have affected the surrounding turbulence as well. Meanwhile, Wang feels it's a waste that good ships are being controlled by useless people and thinks that this Constantine III class survey ship is also flawed. Afterward, a huge rock slams into Fu's ship, and Wang realizes that only the outermost layer of its silver armor is real, while the inner layers are just weak, defective material. Meanwhile, more asteroids start crashing into Fu's ship. His team urgently reports that the silver armor has begun to crack, and although the engine is running at full power, they are stuck in the gravitational turbulence field. Unless they escape the area, they won't be able to break free. However, Fu insists that the ship's armor is strong and that they still have a chance, ordering his team to leave the area at full speed. But soon, the inner armor starts taking damage as well. His team quickly informs him that while the outer layer is tough, the inner layer is not as durable. Seeing that, Fu freaks out, angry over how he has been scammed by the black market. Just then, the ship explodes, but they manage to escape from a core life ship with the full ship's kinetic energy. Suddenly, Ziu and Fu sees Pond over them, which hits them with a laser, and then 2 robots enters their ship. They eliminates all the people in the ship and even gathered the date which was inside the ship. Wang realizes that he got 13 most likely places that the Tiger Merchant fleet had predicted to contain titanium crystal. However, in his previous life, he had never heard any news about titanium crystals being found in the mining area of the asteroid belt. After that, he leaves the pond to meet up with the others and notices a scout ship standing guard at the advanced base. The others ask Wang what they should do. If they go back, they'll be caught by the Tiger Merchant, but if they don't, they won't be able to last much longer. They also ask Wang how he knew the shield would be bad for them, and he replies that it was thanks to Cao's experience that they were able to lure the Tiger Merchant to the nest and get them killed. Wang then tells them that a few days ago, while mining, he saved Qin Wanli from the Shark Merchant. Now, he has received news from Qin Wanli that the Shark Merchant secretly purchased 2 assault ships through a hidden channel. However, Wang knows that Qin Wanli had to pay an urgent service fee to the supplier of the assault ship, but the fee was too high, so he couldn't afford it. That's why they were after him. Meanwhile, everyone agrees that they need to wait for now, but once they find a way out, they can head to the Shark Merchant. Finally, they arrive back to the company and Wang sees Qin Wanli waiting for him, who tells him that he is here to give him a special treat since he saved him the other day. After that, Qin Wanli decides to take Wang to an interesting party in his fake Lamborghini. On the way, Qin Wanli asks if Wang knows Kai, the host of the party. Wang responds that Kai is the successor of the Kingfisher Club. Qin then explains that the Lin family is the true powerhouse on the mining planet. They have strong connections with the Baron of Blackstone's mansion and even control some special forces. Moreover, Qin Wanli tells Wang that the Lin family established themselves in Blackstone 300 years ago. He also mentions that in Kai's grandfather's generation, there was a powerful figure who owned a mighty spark warship. After that, they finally arrive at Kai's party, which is being held in Fairyland, and as they enter, Kai warmly welcomes them. Wang realizes that he accepted the invitation mainly to build connections with the wealthy elite for his future, since in his previous life, he was broke and looked down upon as an illegitimate child. Moreover, he had learned some body refining techniques after arriving at the Baron of Blackstone's mansion, where he was trained as a noble heir. Sometime later, Wang can't help but stare at Zheng's curvy figure, thinking to himself that she is even hotter than Nicki Minaj. Seeing Wang's reaction, Qin tells him that the man chatting with Zheng is Tao, whose family owns an internet cafe. He also points out that the girl beside them is Tao's sister, who looks even better than Selena Gomez. Then, Qin points out that the people gathered in the corner all belong to small forces, but Wang finds it interesting how well he can remember every little detail. Just as Wang starts enjoying the tea, a stunning woman with a curvy figure walks in, mentioning that ecological reconstruction has been going on at the mining site for years, but the tea here still has a metallic taste because of the environment. It turns out she is Luanqin, the owner of this massive mansion. Qin introduces her to Wang, who can't help but stare at her impressive assets. She then comments that he directly destroyed an assault ship from the Tiger merchant fleet and still made it back unharmed, which is truly impressive. She then leaves, but Qin explains that she used to be a native of Mine Stellar region, but she left this remote place and made a career in another region on her own. Moreover, he explains that her husband has a very powerful spark warship, which is a cruiser, but Wang asks him why she owns this villa when she has a powerful warship. After a while, a guy runs straight up to Kai and informs him that 2 guests from Astra Square came to investigate about Hea's merchant fleet but got drunk and tried to do unholy things with a waitress. Hearing that, everyone becomes furious and rushes to eliminate them, but the men act arrogant, claiming they are from Astra Square and insulting it as a small, shabby villa where the waitresses only wanted more money. Just then, the bold Luanqin arrives and firmly declares that anyone from Astra Square is not welcome in Fairview Villa. Afterward, everyone beats the life out of those freaks, and Wang and the fatty drive back. On the way, Wang asks if Luanqin is worried about getting into trouble for helping people from Astra Square. But Qin wanly replies that Luanqin actually holds a grudge against Astra Square. He explains that her husband was from an aristocratic family and once owned a territory. Moreover, Qin wanly explains that Luanqin's husband was persecuted by Astra Square, and in the end, he even lost his territory, which was taken over by them. The next day, someone informs Wang that he no longer has to pay any fees, including the rental fees for the ships, from now on. Wang asks where Laosin is, but the person replies that Laosin took advantage of the company's crisis to line his own pockets. Later, Wang returns to the pond and commands it to activate the capturing signals from different universes. He then enters a battlefield in another universe, where the inspection radar detects a massive number of enemies. Seeing this, Wang realizes that the fleets on both sides aren't using proper formations for medium-range combat, but have instead become completely mixed up. Without hesitation, he decides to attack everyone in front of him. He deactivates invisible mode and fires the main gun, unleashing a barrage of shots at multiple warships. However, more ships start attacking Wang, and he begins to wonder if moving closer to the inside of the battleship means encountering even more warships. Now that he has destroyed 5,000 warships in just 8 hours, he realizes that the enemy can't retreat, and even if they find him, they won't be able to counterattack. Furthermore, he analyzes the situation and sees that the blue side is at a disadvantage. They have gathered nearly 3,000 warships in the center but are still struggling to maintain their defensive formation. However, the red party has 9,000 warships and it laid siege to the blue party's defense ring in all directions. Sometime later, Wang notices that the electric waves on the battlefield have increased, even though the engines are off. It turns out that the negotiation didn't go well, and one of them ended up using a fatal weapon. Realizing the danger, Wang quickly orders the pawn to run at full speed. He barely manages to escape using the shield but soon realizes that both sides knew exactly how powerful the weapon was. The nearby warships struggle to resist its effects, unable to stop it. Suddenly, a black hole appears behind Wang and he immediately wonders if it's real, because if it were, there would be no way the pawn could survive. However, considering the small amount of energy provided by the giant warship, it seems impossible for it to create a real black hole. Instead, it must be a temporary mini-gravitational collapse field. Without wasting time, Wang adjusts the engine to run at 120% power. Since it's a modified engine, it can generate even greater thrust, giving him a chance to escape. After that, Wang's warship gets badly damaged, and the main engine loses a lot of its power. Even though things look bad, he somehow survives. His assistant asks if he wants to use source points to fix the warship, but Wang says it will be repaired soon. Wang then activates the detection, realizing that repairing the engine will cost almost all of his gains. But without thinking about it much, he focuses on how he got more than 1,000 source points this time, as ordinary ships have to work for years to get the same number of source points as him. He then gets an information about mini-gravitational field, saying it can be also used as an additional module, but after it collapsed field is formed, but the first thing would be destroyed is the warship. Also, this is one of the restricted weapons in the Redbud Kingdom. However, he can't bring anything from another universe unless a spark warship recognizes it as a module. Still, he believes that since carrier sparks exist on all warships and there is a mysterious connection between born sparks, humans have spent nearly 10,000 years creating a spark network that works on every ship. After that, he returns to the original universe, wondering if he has gathered all the ores he needs to hand over and the ones required for upgrading the pond. He thinks that what he needs to do now is control the strengthening and upgrading of the carrier-borne modules remotely through the system while heading back. Later, he joins the others for a dinner party and asks if he is late. They discuss how Luankin, the boss of Fairview Villa, sent the team in charge of handling the aftermath of Haya's merchant fleet back to Astra Square. That night, Wang realizes that in just 2 days, it will be September 7th, and the fleet from Blackstone will arrive to take him to the Baron. However, the Baron of Blackstone has been ill for years and hasn't handled government affairs, leaving most of the responsibilities to the Baroness and the vassals. But to him, the Baron has another illegitimate child, born from a secret affair 10 years ago. This child comes from a local force in Blackstone and has gained some support. He also believes that if the Baron of Blackstone loses his title, the nobles from Highland and nearby areas will gain from it. In his past life, when he returned to Blackstone, a group of star bandits tried to stop him, and an unknown warship launched a surprise attack. He firmly promises himself that he will never let anyone take Blackstone from him because it is an important stepping stone for his future. Afterward, Wang returns to his warship and thinks about how, once he finds the key point to create gravitational turbulence and sets off the bombs at the right moment, the meteorite fragments will crash into multiple asteroids one after another. He activates the shield on the pond and soon, tons of meteoroids start crashing into it. This makes him think about how my particles are widely used in battles between spark warships. As an official military material, the production and sale of my particles are strictly controlled by only a few channels. Additionally, the sales records for every my particle are carefully tracked. Its main function is to create a complex astrophysical environment that interferes with detectors and communication devices. After that, he destroys a warship and searches through the wreckage. In the end, he manages to collect some ammunition and a few energy blocks. Later, a man shows up at Wang's door and tells him that he has come to invite him to the mansion on the mining planet. Wang then heads to the massive mansion, where the man asks if they should start with the blood test. Another man takes out a syringe and mentions that seeing Wang reminds him of his younger days when he was hardworking. He wants to check if he is really a Baron's blood or not, but after taking a look at the syringe, he realizes that he is a Baron. He apologizes, saying he is Chen, a direct knight of Baron Wang. However, Chen then says that he must be confused about being invited today and shows him the test results of today. Explains that there is no problem with Wang's life experiences, and recently, he was forced to join the exploration team in the mining area under the threat of the Tiger Merchant. Nonetheless, Ding says that Chen drew his blood test the similarity between him and the Baron. Wang says that from the moment he left the welfare, he swore that he must achieve something, so he worked hard under the premise of being cautious. But he didn't expect that one day, two big shots would tell him that his previous efforts were completely useless. He then tells them that everyone knows the Baron and Baroness only have 2 daughters, so he must be an illegitimate child, which is not a respectable status. However, Chen responds that Astra Square has been declining year after year, and its position is not as strong as it used to be. Another old man adds that there is actually another illegitimate child of the Baron, a 10-year-old boy who is Wang's half-brother. Even so, Wang believes that giving up is not an option, and once his identity is revealed, he will have no choice but to get involved. Moreover, Chen believes that Wang is both wise and brave, but he also acknowledges that the Baron's other son has extraordinary abilities. He further explains that Zhuzhen has some kind of special ability that they still don't fully understand. However, it is said that when humans entered the interstellar age and came into contact with the source of sparks, they started developing such ability. In the end, they give Wang a gift, telling him that it contains an intelligent terminal. Chen then asks if they will be leaving for Blackstone Planet tomorrow, but Wang replies that he still needs to pack up and say goodbye to his buddies. The next day, Wang stands in between Men in Black, wondering how the fleet led by Chen includes his own warship, level 10 Spark Destroyer and 10 assault ships. Even Ding has given him a lot of support this time, and with these 10 assault ships from the patrol fleet, they now have a total of 20. Wang then sends a voice message to his buddies, realizing that returning to the Baron of Blackstone's mansion marks the beginning of him stepping into the maelstrom. On the surface, he needs the Baron's protection, but deep down, he knows this is just the start of something much bigger. However, he wonders if once he becomes an heir, his name will be reported to the aristocratic parliament, allowing him to purchase a new first-generation Spark warship. He then checks the pond on his watch and realizes that after the incident, he secretly left it to monitor the only scout ship of the Tiger Merchant. Meanwhile, Bao tells his ugly servant that once they leave the Mind Stellar region and enter outer space, They can change their direction at any time and then they will come back with a new Tiger merchant fleet. However, it turns out their space station didn't clear the channel and lots of meteorites destroys their ship. Afterward, Wang leaves the mining planet with Chen, who explains him about the power evaluation of his Spark destroyer. But Wang asks how strong it is in terms of combat power compared to Spark's ship, to which Chen replies that most of Assault ships don't have energy shields, so they are weaker. Wang then asks him if there are star bandits near the Mine Stellar region, but Chen replies that there are many in between Blackstone and Highland. Moreover, he mentions that the Baron has been in poor health and unable to handle government affairs for a long time, forcing Blackstone into a defensive position. But Wang responds that Blackstone is also dealing with internal strife with different factions fighting over the air, while Highland and other forces are eagerly eyeing Blackstone for their own gain. Moreover, Wang thinks that Chen trusts the kingdom's authority too much, but in the coming years, conflicts between local aristocrats will escalate rapidly. He then asks Chen if Ding sent the patrol fleet to escort him, wondering if that would leave the Mine Stellar region defenseless. However, Chen replies that the minerals in the Mine Stellar region are worthless and not valuable to star bandits. Still, Wang asks if they might run into any star bandits on the way, but Chen assures him that only a few groups in the nearby stellar regions would be strong enough to challenge them. But Wang believes that Chen's visit and schedule are not exactly secret. He then says that the fleet should be strong enough to protect him. But if someone really wanted to harm him, things could get dangerous. However, Chen is confident that no one is powerful enough to destroy their fleet. Wang then asks which force is the strongest and closest to them. At that moment, Chen suddenly panics, realizing it's Highland. Without hesitation, he orders everyone to raise the fleet's alert level and form the lightning formation. After that, Chen asks if they should change their schedule since there are signs of star bandits nearby. However, Wang says that the bandits have no way of knowing that the patrol fleet is escorting them, and even if they run into multiple star bandit groups, their fleet is strong enough to retreat without harm. Wang then tells Chen that he can only move forward and take responsibility for whatever happens. He also urges Chen to trust him because he will make sure they return to the Baron of Blackstone's mansion safely. 4 days later, Chen informs Wang that they have completed half of the journey and will reach Blackstone after passing through the wormhole. Wang then remembers that in his previous life, the surprise attack took place in a region not far from the Mine Stellar area, where a group of star bandits launched a fierce assault on him. Chen had chosen to fight back, and just as his ship was about to break through, another enemy ship moved in for the kill. In a final act of sacrifice, Chen sent Wang to an assault ship and stayed behind, giving up his own life. Meanwhile, on another ship, Whiteteeth tells Butler that they will complete the mission as promised, even if their target is much stronger than them. However, Whiteteeth remarks that star bandits don't easily cooperate with each other, especially for a two-sided attack. But Butler insists that they must work together with Steelbone to make it happen. He realizes that Steelbone is much stronger than them, and his subordinates are highly united with strong combat skills. However, the Star Bandits see him as a freak because he has always been a man of his word, knowing he has no better choice. He finally decides to cooperate with Steelbone. On the other hand, Wang shows Chen some information about Whiteteeth, explaining that last night he purchased brief details about several Star Bandit groups in the stellar region from Kai. Upon hearing this, Chen immediately orders all ships to fire at Whiteteeth and spread my particles everywhere so they can move toward the wormhole. Meanwhile, aboard Whiteteeth's warship, Whiteteeth instructs his crew to dodge the attacks, but despite their efforts, they still get hit. He orders his crew to repair the damage since nearly 50% of the armor has been destroyed. However, Butler informs him that Steelbone is nearby, so they need to hold the enemy back for a while. As more warships are destroyed, Butler suggests an evil plan to engage the convoy fleet directly, even if it means suffering some losses. Afterward, Wang appreciates Chen's skills for launching such accurate long-distance attacks, but Chen replies that it only works on these star bandits who are easy to be in chaos when getting attacked. Just then, something caught Wang's attention, and it's that Pond found another fleet approaching the wormhole. It turns out to be the Steelbone, but Chen says they can't catch up with them. However, Wang realizes that Steelbone is different from regular bandit groups because it was once a formal military unit skilled in combat. In his previous life, Steelbone refused to retreat and kept fighting until every member was wiped out in an official siege. He then tells Chen that Steelbone is likely to act impulsively, but Chen replies that the information he received from Kingfisher is incomplete. He reveals that Steelbone has more than 100 stormtroopers, all of whom are incredibly strong. Still, Chen tells him that Steelbone's assault ships won't be able to catch up before their own ships reach the wormhole. But if Steelbone decides to break in with a single warship, their Spark warship will reach them before they get there. Afterward, Steelbone begins chasing them, and Chen realizes that while their engine has been strengthened multiple times, it still isn't faster than Skylark. The situation quickly worsens as Steelbone starts launching attacks at them. However, Wang refuses to back down. Determined not to lose, he orders Pawn to turn invisible and unleash bombs on their pursuers. But Chen tells Wang to board the life ship at once. When Steelbone boards Skylark, he will release a large number of life ships. However, Wang tells him to give him an armor because he is good at fighting, realizing if there are bombs on the battlefield, then people with bad intentions can find something about him. Moreover, Chen decides to head straight for the wormhole, even though Steelbone is trying to block their path. Seeing this, Wang realizes that Skylark can move forward to maintain distance while letting the assault ships hold off Steelbone, but it still needs time to recover. Just then, a voice comes through the radio, identifying himself as Ma Da, who is actually Zhangde. Ma Da says he blew up Steelbone's engine and escaped in a lifeboat. Now, he is desperately asking for help. Wang recognizes him right away and quickly tells Chen to rescue him, but Chen hesitates, saying it might be a trap. Wang shakes his head and says they don't need to set a trap to catch them because Ma Da is his friend. Chen hears that Steelbone took the task, and even if they fail this time, they might come back, which could be a big problem. Right away, he tells his team to turn around and head towards Steelbone. When they get there, they see that Steelbone has finally lost the ability to fight. Then, Ma Da calls them, but Wang suddenly notices something strange. Ma Da looks completely different now. After that, Steelbone calls Wang, being all surprised that he answered. He says that if Wang wanted to kill him, he wouldn't have picked up. Wang tells him that he's a smart man and it's a waste for him to be a star bandit. He then asks him to join them, but Steelbone refuses to surrender, saying he won't make the same mistake again. Instead, he says Wang wants him to help him become the heir, but Wang refuses. He replies that he doesn't care about the competition for the heirship, and if he goes ahead slowly, he will be the heir one day. Moreover, he says that not all rich people are bad and Blackstone has nothing to do with the noble families in the Scaparius Federation. He then adds that a few days ago, he and his friends were planning to fight a noble force in a nearby stellar region, so he admires his courage. However, Steelbone replies that he has already been deceived by the politicians in the Scaparius Federation, so he would rather die on the battlefield than serve anyone again. But Wang doesn't seem to like his answer and asks if Steelbone is really willing to abandon all the people who have believed in him and followed him for decades, only to give up everything now. After hearing that, Zhu starts crying, saying all these years his men died for nothing and for revenge he has become the most hated person in the past. But Wang says he killed a nobody freak, who was worthless, that he even comparing him to dozens of his family members who died and so many fellows who trusted him. Wang then tells him that he gave up on his revenge like a coward. But Zhu quickly responds, saying he still remembers his mission. Wang challenges him, asking how he plans to take revenge if he ends up dead. He explains that he never gives up on anything, no matter how much he is chased or cornered. Even if there's no chance of winning, he will still make sure to hurt his enemies as much as he can. After that, Wang decides to keep Steelbone and his homeless knights captive. He plans that once he becomes the heir of Blackstone, he can build his own team, but he won't accept anyone except Steelbone. Later, Ma Da calls Wang and tells him that the Steelbone commander has been killed and that he is now the new commander. Then, Ma Da tells him about the information he has been getting these days and that now they are subordinate commanders. Sometime later, on Blackstone planet, Chen shows Wang the landing area and explains that no warships have been allowed to land there ever since the Baron's condition started getting worse. Afterward, Wang sits with an old geezer who tries to probe him, asking if there's anything he wants to know. But Wang calmly replies that learning too much about the Baron without actually meeting him wouldn't be a wise choice. The old man studies Wang for a moment and remarks that he looks a lot like the Baron in his younger days. However, Wang quickly dismisses the comparison, saying that he is not qualified to be measured against the Baron. He explains that Blackstone has changed due to various reasons up to now, and every member of the Baron team has made great contribution to Blackstone. However, he asks Wang what he thinks about the fact that, since the Baron is dying, people are starting to have different ideas. They believe they made great contributions and now want to compete for the position of heir. But Wang replies that his opinion doesn't matter, realizing that the old man is just testing his attitude toward those early vassals. Wang then asks the old man what illness the Baron is suffering from and if it is serious. The old man replies that the Baron was infected by an unknown microorganism, which has caused severe damage to his body. However, Wang asks if there is a medicine for it, but the geezer replies that long ago science of Scaparius created an immune agent, which works well on infection, but Baron sent someone to communicate with lab and still no response. Later, they finally arrive in the Silver Castle, where Baron apologizes for what happened to him and his mother. But Wang doesn't really care about his past anymore. He realizes that Wang is being heavily affected by that microorganism illness. However, Baron then asks Wang about the Tiger Merchant Fleet incident. Wang replies that he didn't see the need to ask for help. Before the exploration operation even started, he already had a plan and was able to carry it out easily with the other miners. However, the Baron questions why someone as inexperienced as Wang took action instead of the others. Wang answers maturely, saying that while some people might have been afraid of the fleet, he didn't see them as that powerful. Even though they had the advantage, he didn't feel threatened. Even so, Baron says that he surprised him again on the way back to Blackstone plant because his friend Ma Da only appeared once and he still chose to believe in him. But Wang replies the situation was very clear at that time, so he had to trust Ma Da. After he gets done with Baron's lecture, he leaves the room to find a goddess Otaku maid standing for his service. After a while, Baron tells the oldie that Wang looks different from the profile he saw before because according to it he was a cautious, optimistic loser, but what he has done recently shows his courage. The next day, Baron gives Wang a book in a box, saying there is a body refining technique in the book and in the box there is a star grass to help that technique. Wang realizes that it's finally his time to get stronger, because being weak and short lifespan is a negative point for humans in this age. But with this technique, he can evolve easily with this important resource. Then, Wang goes to a teacher named Lin, who will help him with the technique. Lin is a knight and also a vassal who has reached the highest level of body refining technique in Blackstone. He explains the technique to Wang, saying that 10 versions have been created over time, each improving to help strengthen a weak body. However, the current versions of the technique are divided into 3 stages: preliminary, medium, and premium. Moreover, he says that when he reaches the medium stage, he can keep his prime for a long time, but when he reaches the premium stage, his body's maximum limit will be raised every time he breaks through a level. Afterward, he tells Wang to practice the technique and tells him to read the information about preliminary stage of technique. Wang realizes that cultivating this technique is not easy, and the early stage includes 36 stretching movements, all of which are highly difficult. Moreover, he reads that if a cultivator doesn't use star grass to open certain channels, they may face serious consequences. Wang gets into a stretching position, but Lin tells him to twist his arms first, like left arm to clockwise and right arm to anti-clockwise to stretch them. Afterward, they begin practicing the first stage, but Lin punches Wang and taunts him, saying that if he can't handle the pain, then he must be a girl. However, because of his past experiences, Wang manages to stay still. Lin is impressed by how quickly Wang learns the techniques and he tells him to rest for a few hours before they continue practicing again. Some days later, Wang arrives at the dinner table and sees Baroness Fanghua, who is from Jade Planet, and her family is one of the big families there. The Baron then introduces Wang to his other children, and first, there's Guanan, who is a troublemaker but also a nerd. Then there's Guanbei, who is talented in body cultivation techniques, and lastly, there's Jujun, who has been protected by his family since childhood. Wang realizes that the Baron must know about him before summoning him back to the mansion, but in first 20 years of his life, he never cared about him. The next day, Wang's 3 siblings join him in practicing the body refining technique. Afterward, Wang realizes that even though Guanan is 6 years older than Jujun, their progress is the same and they have only completed 6 movements. He keeps looking at Guanan's peaches, surprised that she is only 12 years old but has already completed 26 movements. She started practicing body refining when she was 10. After finishing her own practice, she is shocked to see that Wang is already done with his. Even so, she asks him to compete with her, but Wang replies that he just started learning this. He realizes that she has reached the peak level 4 of the body refining technique and will be promoted to level 5 anytime. Afterward, Ma Da tells Wang that most of the steel-born parts are still in good shape and can be fixed in half a month. Wang doesn't really want to leave his stepsister alone, but since Pond has arrived at the meeting place, he has to go. Meanwhile, Baron asks his wife what she thinks of Wang, but it seems like she doesn't really like him much. He tells her that Wang is great at everything, and even someone like Waikun, who has overseen the mining area for many years and doesn't usually like anyone, appreciates him a lot. However, she responds that the boys from her family are better. Baron tells her that everyone is different, but what he values most about Wang is how much he cares about family bonds. He then says that Sunhu is a good boy, but he can't give him the chance to fully use his talents. However, aside from the Shi family, no other force wants a man from the Shi family to become the new Baron. He then asks her if she thinks her father will still take her and the girls seriously once she stabilizes his power. Hearing that, she panics and asks if he can promise that Wang won't use Guanan and Guanbei to gain support in the future. He responds that he was the one who took on the entire Steelbone by himself and tells her not to be fooled by the rumors spreading outside. He then tells her that if Wang inherits the title, he will be able to protect Guanan and Guanbei for the rest of their lives. But she replies that when he asked Shay to pick Wang, she told her father, and he spread the news everywhere. Baron tells her not to mention it to anyone, as he will take care of the situation himself. Meanwhile, Wang informs the old geezer about his departure, making the old man almost choke on his terrible coffee. Wang explains that the change in environment has put a lot of pressure on him. The old man then says he will talk to the Baron about Wang's request, and if the Baron agrees, they will arrange for someone to go with him. Afterward, Lin arrives and tells Wang that he will accompany him for a few days. But Wang replies that he has some personal matters to handle, so he will postpone his body refining technique and leave. Later, at Chen's villa, he introduces Wang to his son, Zigong, who has been training as an Orthodox knight. Wang then asks Zigong to be his squire for a while, remembering how loyal he was in Wang's previous life, even sacrificing his life for him. Later, Wang returns to the Warship, where Ma Da informs him that many people have been eyeing the carrier module in the past few days. He also mentions that the logistics work is going well but is still unreliable. Wang responds that he has already asked the Baron for help and the issue has been resolved. Ma Da then tells Wang that the Baron's original family holds the title of Count Palatine, and the current lord is the Baron's great-uncle. He also informs him about the fleet, which includes some warships and a total of 55 ships. Wang then asks about the current situation, and Ma Da replies that the Baron has strong control over Blackstone. He assures Wang that he has a good advantage in the competition for the airship. Wang realizes that Ma Da is right because the Baron can still manage the affairs in Blackstone. He wouldn't just hand the title to an outsider, and the other children are still too young to take on the responsibility. However, Wang believes they need to keep an eye on Jinkyu and Jinli since they caused a lot of trouble in his past life. Ma Da then mentions that most of the possessions were taken by Chen, and the spoils were distributed among the members, but Yu still has some property that can support their fleet. Afterward, Wang decides to enter another battlefield in a different universe, where he thinks the carrier spark allows the warship to self-heal. He then tells Pawn to charge its main gun, and then move to the side of enemy ship and stop being invisible. He then shoots the planet mine in front of him, gaining several points. Afterward, Wang discovers a legendary crystal hidden inside a box, and as he examines it, he realizes that his auxiliary system currently has only 2 available functions, lifting the level restriction on civilizations and enabling distance-free control. By activating the function to lift the level restriction, which grants him the ability to choose his opponent's level in advance, giving him a significant advantage in future battles. Afterward, he starts searching for all the 13 boxes, which doesn't contain those valuable things, but in the last box, he finds the titanium crystal, one of the most important resources of Spark warships. However, he thinks that if the news leaks that there is a titanium mine in the mining area, it will bring a calamity to Blackstone. Wang wonders that if it wasn't that hard to go deep into the mining he could check them one by one and erase all traces. Wang activates the distance-free control, removing quantum manipulation system, and equips microparticle robot. Moreover, he starts practicing body refining techniques, wondering if it's related to source of sparks. But the sad part is that source point is hard to obtain, so he doesn't want to wait. Later, he practices for 15 hours and completed most of the 8 movements. Some days later, Baron tells Wang that he is going to hold a dinner party soon, inviting most of the Blackstone staff. But Wang tells him to rest, saying antibiotics can cure the bacterial infection. He then asks when he is going to introduce him to all the forces, but Baron replies that he isn't that weak and he should go practice body refining technique. He meets with his other stepsisters, saying he brought some gifts for them and will take them next time. Later that night, Wang wonders that Pond will have its long voyage, because he activated distance-free control. He thinks about how the Phoenix Galaxy is part of Astra Square and serves as an important location. Its market has been around for a long time. He decides to connect Pond to the Spark network because every day, many old accounts are deleted and new ones are created, so no one will notice Pond. After setting it up, he travels for 8 days. When he arrives at the Phoenix Galaxy, he sees that no one has to pay any fees to enter. Just then, a baddie welcomes him, saying she is High Commissioner of Phoenix Business Department. She will provide some unholy services for him during his stay. Wang shows her Pond, saying it will supply and trade at Phoenix Airport, but she replies that she has arranged a spot for Pond at the dock. Wang realizes that the function created by the system is great because even after running Pond for years, it still feels like he is there in person. Later, Ma Da tells Wang that Jinkyu and Jinli made a move last night, and then Jinli started gathering information about the whereabouts of Guanan and Guanbei. Wang knows that Jinli is just a hypocrite, who even ran away in his previous life after causing trouble. Afterward, Wang links to Spark Network, registered a new account, sold mini gravitational field generator, and bought supplements in the Phoenix Galaxy. In his previous life, when the Baron heard about an immune agent that could cure all infections, he sent someone to the academy, hoping to get some. A month later, when the Baron finally contacted them, they treated him poorly and demanded 10,000 source points without offering anything in return. Meanwhile, Wang finds that lotus plant that will kill microorganisms in stock. Wang asks them if there is any discount on them, but he denies since they are already out of stock. but Wang still gives the order, wondering if one lotus will be enough to help the Baron's condition. Suddenly, the seller raises the price of the lotus, but Wang responds by offering to pay extra coins per plant if he buys 5. He adds that he will pay even more if he buys more than 10. However, the person refuses to give in to such a profiteer, knowing that he might have more lotuses and that if he agrees to the price increase now, the seller will only raise it again. Just then, something catches Wang's eye, a person with 20,000 source points. He soon realizes that this person is a wanted man who was once well known in the Scaparius Federation. An hour later, the person replies that he has 7 lotuses left and he can sell them for 1050 source coins each, but Wang replies that he can do 1040 for each plant and he has to give free gifts as well. A few days later, the Baron asks the old man what Taylor thinks of Wang, since he had asked her to teach him some etiquette. The old man replies that Wang did well and picked up many things in a short time. Taylor believes he is intelligent and has a natural talent for it, but Baron thinks that everyone supports Wang no matter what, but if it were in the past, they wouldn't have any objections, but now things are different. The old man replies that among the 8 knights in Blackstone, everyone supports Wang even without his orders. Furthermore, the local forces don't dare to interfere with his plans, and his original family has already gained the support of 2 knights, so there's nothing for him to worry about. Meanwhile, Wang looks at his items and thinks all of these 3 items are good. He further wonders that, after several rounds of bidding, the current highest bid for the purple class obsidian is 3,000 source coins has reached 11,500 sources coins. He then bids for the Spark Warship license, which is around 7,800, but he waits till it reaches 10,500 and finally bids successfully. Later that night, at a party in the Silver Castle, the Baron introduces everyone to his 2 sons, Wang and Jujun. Soon after, people start whispering about Wang's etiquette and how much he has improved. However, the Baron silences the gossip by announcing that Wang will be the next heir of Blackstone. Afterward, everyone becomes furious, insisting that the Baron should reconsider since Wang has only just returned to the Blackstone mansion and hasn't received any proper training as an heir. As Wang looks at the man who just spoke, he realizes it is Jun, one of the 8 knights of Blackstone. In his previous life, Jun had a close relationship with Jinkyu. However, Chen and the K-pop idol steps forward, saying Wang is wise and brave, and he will be an outstanding heir. But the man with the ugly hairstyle laughs, saying that before coming here, he had heard that the men of Blackstone were all brave, but now he feels a bit disappointed. He adds that no one will ever accept a commoner as their leader. However, Taylor responds by saying that Wang stayed calm in the face of danger, fought off the attacks of White Teeth and Steel Bone and made decisive moves. Nonetheless, Wang replies that he has been taking his etiquette class, but he can't call Jinkyu sir because he has no title. He then tells everyone that Blackstone is known for its bravery and doesn't need the approval of any nobles from the capital. Furthermore, he declares that since he has been chosen as the heir, he will uphold Blackstone's proud traditions, work tirelessly, and contribute to the growth of the Redbud Kingdom. Just then, the Baroness's father arrives and says that Blackstone earned its reputation for bravery. If the 2 clowns from the capital want to see it for themselves, then Wang should show them. Wang realizes that he is Zio, the head of Shi family and the Baroness' father. He thinks that Zio is a fox, who is a hypocrite, and now Baron is dying and losing control. He will try to seize the opportunity and bring more benefits to Shi family. However, Jinkyu and Jinli suggest a single ship duel, where 2 people pilot their warships and battle within a limited airspace. Wang's younger siblings become furious, complaining that he just returned, doesn't even own a warship, and now wants a duel. Wang agrees with them, saying that he has only been in Blackstone for half a month, has just started practicing the body refining technique and is completely broke. Jinli gives Wang 2 options, saying that since Wang is still in the preliminary stage of his body refining technique while he is at the medium stage, Wang can wear blue class exoskeleton armor, and he will wear green class armor. Nonetheless, Wang thinks Jinli is just playing around because he has nothing to lose, while if Wang loses, his heirship is at stake. Afterward, Zio says that Wang don't have much experience because he has always been with common people on the mining planet, but he tells Jinli that his proposal is fair, though some details still need to be adjusted since Wang has only just started practicing the body refining technique. He then suggests that Jinli should wear ordinary armor, while Wang will wear blue armor. Wang also tells them that if he wins the challenge, all of Jinli's assets should be given to the person he designates as ransom. Nonetheless, Jinli finally accepts his conditions and will give all his personal property to the person designed by Wang. Afterward, their battle finally begins in space, and the Baron realizes that as the heir of Blackstone, Wang must be able to handle difficult tasks on his own. Meanwhile, Wang shares his secret plan with Ma Da and the homeless-looking guy. He then turns off the gravity, but Jinli just laughs, mocking him for using such a dull trump card. He confidently says that a zero-gravity environment won't affect him. Afterward, Jinli charges at Wang, boasting that his training is professional and systematic. However, Wang jumps at the perfect moment, dodging the attack with ease, leaving Jinli in shock. He can't believe it, thinking it should be impossible since ordinary armor doesn't allow someone to change direction in midair. Jinli takes a defensive stance, thinking he just needs to block Wang's attack and gain control when Wang gets closer. However, to his shock, Wang suddenly appears behind him and delivers a powerful 1-inch punch. Jinli immediately collapses to the ground, and Wang quickly tells Xiao to announce the result of the duel. But Jinkyu says there is something suspicious about Wang's armor and tells Xiao to let him inspect it. However, Wang refuses, saying that he is the winner, and until Xiao announces it, he won't stop. Xiao then announces Wang as the winner, and some of Wang's people take Jinli away. Wang tells Jinkyu that Jinli will remain his captive until the ransom is paid. However, Wang asks Jinkyu if he would like to stay and keep Jinli company. Jinkyu, furious over being humiliated in front of everyone, insists that Jinli lost only because he underestimated his opponent, but Xiao interrupts, saying that Wang has taken the initiative to fight Jinkyu. He then declares once again, as the witness, that the battle between Wang and Jinkyu has been officially established. However, Wang questions Xiao, asking when he ever agreed to a duel and accusing him of being shameless. Jinli then points at Wang, saying he don't think he is a coward but he should accept his challenge to duel. Even so, Wang refuses, saying he will have a huge disadvantage in terms of communication with the crew and asks Jinkyu to add 10 more assault ships in the ransom. Just then the commander of the fleet arrives, saying he authorizes Jinkyu to dispose of 10 new assault ships. Afterward, Xiao tells Jinli to choose the location first, while Wang can decide the time later, but Wang thinks that Xiao is just a shameless old man. Just then, Jinli selects the interstellar pathway around the Blackstone planet as the battleground, but Wang says he doesn't want to waste any more time messing around with them, so they should just fight now. As the battle starts, Baron notices that Wang has solid foundational skills and keeps a steady flight posture, sitting inside the steel bone. Wang switches the engine to second gear, fully aware that his ship is 4 levels superior to Jinkyu's saber. Just then, Jinkyu fires a shot at Wang, but Chen notices that the distance Jinkyu is maintaining is 1/3 farther than the standard range. Meanwhile, Wang's refining coach comments that Wang never mentioned his ability to actively control free cosmic energy. He then asks Chen if everything is ready, to which Chen replies that Jinli is now under Zhu's control. Wang takes another hit and his shield's durability drops to 89%. After analyzing the pattern of Jinli's attacks, he commands the steel bone to release the Mai particles and activate automatic avoidance mode. He smirks, thinking that no one expected the steel bone, renowned for its boarding battles, to be equipped with a high-quality main gun. Wang charges straight at Jinli and unleashes a devastating area attack, reducing Jinli's shield durability by nearly 96%. Moments later, Jinli's shield completely collapses and he loses the match. Back at the base, the crowd erupts and cheers for Wang's victory. However, Wang remains composed and turns to Xiao, instructing him to proceed with the ransom negotiations. After that, Wang turns to Zuo and says that since he doesn't have a proper warship, he wants him to be the commander of Horse/. As soon as Zuo hears this, he drops to his knees and promises to dedicate himself to serving Blackstone. But Wang remembers that in his past life, Zuo was always obsessed with having his own warship and never betrayed Blackstone. However, Chen tells Wang to think twice because it's an important matter, but Wang replies that they don't have to worry, since it's a 3rd-generation warship. They can only trust their own people. Wang then mentions that Zigong is young but his overall abilities are above average. After saying this, he appoints Zigong as the commander of the Saber. Later, Wang visits his stepsister for something secretive, but instead, he gives her some flame fruit and yakin, which are rare and expensive in their world. After that, he goes to meet Baron, who tells him that he should head to the capital to receive his title. He then tells Wang that he should take Blackstone since the identity of Steelbone is sensitive. But Wang replies that it's better for Blackstone to stay here because he doesn't want to attract too much attention. However, Baron tells him that Spark warships are everywhere and if he doesn't have a few warships in his fleet, no one will take him seriously. Later, Wang calls Mada, saying he has 3 Spark warships now and tons of new things including their crew members and energy blocks. He tells Mada to start verifying the materials for the secret technique that he sent him before. Later, he starts the Mirage system in a pond and enters another battlefield. He then tells Pond to locate all the native resident survivors and automatically choose the most efficient navigation path. But Pond begins dropping bombs, but Wang focuses on practicing his body refining techniques. Afterward, he checks the map and notices that only 2 bright red dots remain. However, one is located inside a natural cave on an island mountain, while the other is deep underwater at a depth of over 200 meters. Afterward, Wang realizes that this is a biochemical medical pod, which is extremely useful. compared to other physical dangers. The microorganism that infected Baron was only level 1, meaning he could also be cured in this pod. Later, Wang gets an idea and puts on 2 spacesuits and an armor, then decides to pilot the mining ship to the planet's satellite. From there, he plans to remotely control Pond to retrieve the module. Afterward, Wang gets to a planet and unload the microparticle maintenance robot module and start connecting to the biochemical medical pod. Afterward, he returns to the original universe and calls Ma Da, saying he wants to mine for another 24 hours. The next day, the Baron tells Wang that from now on, he will be the deputy captain of Blackstone, and then Wang departs with Su Rong, who asks him to give some instruction. Wang tells him to ask the other ships to sail and form a spherical formation centered around the ship. Next, Chen calls Wang and tells him that it has been 3 days since they left Blackstone to head to the capital. However, Wang asks him about the main sources of coin income in Blackstone territory, but Chen replies that the Spark warships in Blackstone take on online commissions to earn source coins and then give 10% of their income to the Baron. Later, Su Rong tells Wang that their fleet has bypassed Highland and entered the airspace of Astra Square. He explains that once they pass through it and cross 2 more territories, they will reach Northland, the political center of the Northern Stellar. After that, Chen informs Wang that an interstellar cruise ship happens to be on their route. Later, on the interstellar ship, a baddie gives a brief introduction, explaining that the ship is owned by the Langya Group. She then tells Wang and the others that it travels in a circular route, beginning at the capital and ending at the border of the Weijing Galaxy. Moreover, she explains that when returning from the Weijing Galaxy to the capital, Twilight will pass through the Hangu Galaxy, where many ancient stellar regions exist without belonging to any administrative star. Fortunately, the restaurant on Twilight has been rated as a 3-star restaurant by the Food Association of Redbud Kingdom, making it one of the ship's major highlights. Afterward, Wang gets back to his ship where he smells that something is approaching towards them. Fortunately, Pond has been flying ahead of the fleet, and with the inspection radar, the detection range of Pond is much wider than that fleet. Just as the people rushes towards him with attacks, Wang tells Su Rong to make all the ships change its direction. Shen asks him if there is something wrong, but Wang replies that they should leave because something bad is about to happen and tells Chen to tell the entire fleet to leave the navigation route. Meanwhile, on the Wrath King Kong ship, a crew member informs the captain that an interstellar ship is on their planned route. The captain asks if they can avoid it, but the crew member replies that their ship's armor damage has reached 89%, which is higher than expected. He adds that if they choose to avoid the ship, they will miss their predetermined contact time. However, the captain orders him to have them steer clear, as their ship will continue with their plans. However, in the command room of the flagship of the following fleet, a crew member asks his commander if they need to avoid the interstellar ship and its mixed fleet ahead of them. The captain instructs him to contact them and ask them to move aside. Meanwhile, in Twilight's control room, another crew member orders the escort to form an emergency defense formation around Twilight and leave the current navigation route immediately. However, his captain freaks out on him, asking if he is an idiot because 2 forces sent them emergency communications in a row. The captain's main point is that they are not the target, so they just need to avoid the ship in time. Meanwhile, in the Wrath King Kong's control room, a crew member informs the captain that their reinforcement is about to arrive. However, the captain orders him to proceed with the plan. Zhang then explains that the buffering time of the King Kong's energy shield is shorter than that of ordinary shields, and their crew members are more skilled at handling difficult repairs during battles. After some time, their reinforcement fleet arrives, and the commander with the ugly hairstyle confidently tells his men to follow his orders, assuring them that he will take full responsibility. However, it turns out that the reinforcement fleet betrays them and launches a ruthless attack, completely destroying their ship. Meanwhile, on the Steelbone ship, Su Rong tells Wang that this is how powerful a super main gun is. It's the ultimate weapon of a Spark battleship. Wang realizes that with the widespread transmission of emergency messages, many nearby ships will join the rescue efforts. However, his plan is to gather all the leftover debris from the King Kong ship. In the end, he manages to obtain a high-level energy crystal and a golden-class main gun. After many days of travel, they finally arrive in Northland, but they have to wait in line for at least 6 more days before they can be teleported. To pass the time, Wang decides to practice his body refining techniques. As he trains, he realizes that with the experience he gained in his previous life, he has successfully broken through from the perfect preliminary stage to the medium stage. Afterward, Su Rong hands Wang a VIP card from the Langya Group, explaining that if they let the original family of the Baron handle their agenda, they will likely try to sabotage their plans. To avoid this, he suggests that once they arrive in the capital, they should ask the Langya group to arrange their itinerary instead. Following that, they finally arrives in the capital and a baddie welcomes them, saying she is the senior commissioner of Langya Group. In addition, she says that the certification of his title of Sir has been arranged and she will take him to Parliament to complete the entire process. After a while, Wang steps out, now bearing a tattoo on his arm that grants him permission to bind himself with the carrier spark. Shunxin then tells him that he can make any request, as she personally admires his righteous deeds in the northern stellar region. However, the shy clown simply replies that he will contact her later for some late-night fun. Later, Wang tells his ship to book a spark warship, but it replies that he needs to bring a license and take the transport ship, Steelport, with him. He realizes that Pond has finally arrived in the capital, and the small docks nearby are too expensive. Now, he must find a way to hide his identity and obtain a new spark warship. Just then, Wang says that he can buy 100 standard energy blocks with 1 source coin, but he decides to purchase 30,000 blocks first. Even after that, he will still have over 8,000 source coins, which he needs to spend within a few days. After that, he plans to abandon Pond in this account. Suddenly, the computer announces that they will offer a price 10% higher than the market rate. However, Wang still believes that this kind of regional communication must cost a few hundred source points. He then realizes that the information has been leaked, which means he can sell his remaining lotuses for extra coins. After selling them, he earns 76,000 source coins, making his net profit over 70,000 source coins. Afterward, Wang waits for an auction to start, which only targets a small group of customers who have sufficient capital and most of the items are of high quality. However, he sees a golden class armor which really meets his needs, but if he buy this, the risk will be reduced even if he go to the deep mining area on Asteroid Belt. Its price increase, but Wang add another 5,000 coins to it and purchase it. Afterward, Wang spends nearly all of his source points with 1,000 coins left in his account. After receiving the goods, Wang decides to enter another battlefield. This time, he encounters an exploration fleet of Type I Interstellar but only manages to obtain 15 units of source points. He then puts on his Invisible Man suit, which he bought earlier. The suit is made of a special material that can block all personal characteristics of the wearer. Wang enters the plane, where a woman named Jia approaches him, introducing herself as the receptionist sent by the Royal Shipyard. She explains that the Royal Shipyard was built in the year 8301 of the interstellar era and has a history of nearly 2,000 years. Suddenly, Wang slips his hand beneath Jia's skirt and hands her some money. Making an excuse, she quickly heads to the bathroom. Once inside, she is shocked to see 3 million orams, realizing that even after working for 10 years, she wouldn't be able to earn that much. Afterward, she returns to Wang and explains the normal process. They will enter the Royal Shipyard through entrance number 3 and then she will take him to the exhibition dock, where 3 destroyers have not yet been bound with spark. Wang asks her how many exhibition docks are available during the selection at the Royal Shipyard. Jia replies that there are 200. He then asks if 600 destroyers can be bound with the carrier spark, but she replies that even more than that can be bound. Nonetheless, Wang asks her if there is a way for him to see all the warships in the shipyard that can be bound with carrier spark, but Jia replies that each customer has only one chance to change the exhibition dock, which means he can only choose 1 warship from 6 warships and 2 exhibition docks. Wang tells Jia that he just needs to look at their shapes carefully. Jia says that's easy to arrange and that she'll use her authority to add him to today's sightseeing list. Later, at the docks, Wang says he wants to see the giant one, but Jia tells him that's not possible. He gives her more money, hoping to change her mind. Feeling tempted, she starts making calls and says she can make it happen. After looking at the giant ship, Wang decides to buy, so he tells Jia to add it in the exhibition deck. Afterward, he receives an S-level destroyer, and it has an extremely high growth potential, which means that I have a golden class hull or even an orange class. Then, its carrier-born spark arrives, and the worker tells Wang to start the spark binding soon. The worker tells Wang to enter the selected battleship and open the container there. Then the carrier-born spark will be bound with the battleship and him during the process. Wang sits inside the warship like Spider-Man and activates its remote control. Using a holographic image, he tells Pond to turn off the inspection radar and other systems. Then, he orders Pond to start the self-destruct program and then it completely dissipates. Wang can only be the captain of 1 spark warship at one time, and if he want to bind with a new warship, he can't be the captain of Pond anymore, and if he keep Pond, it will bring him more trouble one day. Afterward, Wang opens the container holding the carrier spark, and the thing inside begins entering his body. If the binding fails, he will still be the captain, but he will be downgraded to a 2nd-generation captain, which comes with many consequences. The robot asks if he will always remain human and protect others, but Wang firmly replies that he will never be a servant to other races and will always stay human. After that, Wang gains ownership of the spark warship and the system activates. He starts thinking about how the module feature selection of the auxiliary system might indirectly affect the quality of the hull during the initial binding process. After that, the system presents Wang with several feature options to choose from. Without hesitation, he selects myriads of things. Basically, a Spark warship usually starts with 3 module slots, and when a hull is upgraded by 2 levels, an extra slot is added. On top of that, the endless possibilities make the Spark warship even more incredible. Moving forward, the system asks Wang to name the ship, and this time, he is ready. He pulls out a long list of names he prepared and selects Dark Rock, and luckily, the name hasn't been used yet. Sometimes later, Wang gets back and wonders that he should control the automatic robots in the dock to decompose the wreckage of Pond and transfer the supplies to Dark Rock first. Then, he needs to get source points for Dark Rock and load the Mirage system and other cool modules onto it. Afterward, he enters another battlefield with Dark Rock, but for him it's going to be the most dangerous battle because this warship hasn't been enhanced ever. He realizes that it takes 2 minutes for the virtual image to be loaded, as the ordinary class radar is slower than purple class radar. Wang starts attacking other warships like he's playing a video game. He's excited to earn 1 source point for each warship he destroys, which is 4 times faster than using Flying Pond. After that, he decides to help a struggling baddie. He tells her to hide behind him because more enemy reinforcements are on the way. Just then, everyone starts attacking Wang's new ship, but their attacks have no effect. He realizes that even though his warship's ordinary class armor hasn't been upgraded, it's still way too strong for Type I interstellar weapons. Furthermore, 300 more warships start approaching Wang, but he instantly destroys them all, earning over 300 source points. Seeing this, the commander of Lidao realizes they stand no chance against someone who wiped out 300 warships so easily and quickly orders everyone to retreat. After fighting with them for 8 hours, Wang tells the baddie to go ahead, but the baddie gives him a gift for the kindness he showed them. It turns out this contract which the girl just gifted him worth more than a golden class module for Wang. Wang realizes that he has been fighting alone to keep Pond's existence a secret, but now that Pond is gone, he needs to find a full crew. However, as long as the Mirage system is still on his warship, he can't recruit anyone. So, he decides to return to his original universe. Afterward, Wang has enough source points to finally change his existing modules with better ones. He changes the main gun, engine and inspection radar, but despite not being upgraded, the combat evaluation of Dark Rock is still level 8. Then he thinks about how in just few months, he accumulated a good amount of fortune that no normal class warship captain can get in his lifetime. Afterward, Wang goes back to meet Chen and the K-pop idol, who congratulate him on earning the title of Sir. Wang says he will leave some preparation work to them and asks if there is anything else. Chen then mentions that he heard a Federation institution has developed a wide-spectrum antibiotic that could be effective in treating the Baron's illness. However, Wang replies that he has already found a solution, so they don't need to give in to those profiteers. He then tells them that at the Langia group banquet, he made friends with some captains of Spark warships, and one of them has a carrier-borne module that can effectively cure microbial infections. Sometime later, Wang calls Rabbit, another one of his side chicks, telling her that he wants to see her in person soon. But Rabbit, who has been playing with herself for a while, replies that she can't meet him because she has to take part in a long-range navigation mission soon. Meanwhile, as everyone prepares to head back home, Wang realizes that Dark Rock has finally been registered after half a month. But just then, he suddenly receives a wide-area clear text communication message from someone. However, it looks like there is something fishy in the message because it doesn't elaborate on key parts and there is no detailed information about the attackers. Wang thinks about how there aren't many Star Bandit groups in the nearby galaxy that could threaten a level 20 destroyer, and the forces behind those groups are complicated. But Chen says this involves the heir of Astra Square, and if they ignore it, the Baron might end up in trouble. However, Wang replies that there is no heir to Astra Square there, and this should be a self-claiming message, and there are many untold things in it. Suddenly, Chen realizes that there was a spaceship that didn't save the passengers but snatched cargo after Twilight was hit. Afterward, a ship approaches them, announcing that they have been temporarily requisitioned by Astra Square and must head to a specific airspace for a rescue mission. However, Wang tells everyone to ignore the annoying ship, knowing that they might get in trouble for disregarding the message. But with the entire Astra Square in chaos, he decides it's not his problem. After 2 months, Wang finally arrives back at the Silver Castle with gifts. He gives some adult toys to Guanbei and Jujin, then hands Guanin a full collection of books by her favorite author. For the Baron's wife, he brings the latest popular crystal power cosmetics. Wang then goes to meet Baron, who informs that Tiansai's flagship has been severely damaged, but Tiansai was not on the ship at that time. The Baron tells Wang that people from the Langia group arrived in Blackstone last month and made major investments in construction and other projects. Suddenly, the Baron starts coughing, making Wang worried. Wang quickly reassures him, saying that during his trip, he met a captain who has a carrier-borne module on his flagship, Dark Rock, which can effectively cure microbial infections. Later, Wang takes Baron to get some treatment, and when Baron gets out of the treatment machine, he feels that something is strange. However, Wang tells him that the microbial infection in his body has been completely cured and he has regained his health. Hearing that, Baron gets excited, asking if he could meet the captain of this beautiful warship to express his gratitude. But Wang replies that Dark Rock has to leave now for some reason and they should head back to the castle. But the Baron tells Wang that this will be another crossroads in his life and asks if he is ready. Wang replies that he will achieve everything he wants in an honorable way through his own efforts, not by trickery. After that, the Baron and Wang return to the Silver Castle, where the Baron eats like a wild dog, saying that only he and Fugui know about his recovery. Afterward, Wang gets back on his ship and heads to another battlefield, where he finds 6 useless modules that aren't worth collecting. Just then, enemies attack his ship, but their attacks have no effect. The enemies are shocked and start wondering if Wang's warship is a top-tier vessel. The enemy's commander decides to ask all the 300 warships of the 3rd Guard Fleet to attack it because they have no choice but to fight. They all starts firing their attacks on Dark Rock, but still it has no effect. They wonders it's strange because a normal warship would break in two. Afterward, they surrounded the enemy spaceship and the next volleys will be divided into 3 shootings, which can block all of its escape space. However, they still have no scratch on Dark Rock because it has a Golden-class Immortal Silver armor. Wang then completely destroys the enemy's warships in a single blow as if it was nothing. The enemies wonder that the firing rate of the enemy warship is much better than that of their warships, and its armor has strong resistance to kinetic energy attacks. But Wang wonders that they dispatched all the stationed fleets from the base in one go and they will do whatever it takes to hold him back. Wang tells Dark Rock to retreat while shelling, so he can destroy them more. But the enemies think that Wang is just scared of them and is running away. After some time, Wang finally defeats them all and decides to enter their base. He then orders Dark Rock to cruise near the enemy's forward base, knowing they will assume he's unwilling to leave. But in reality, he plans to wait for a bigger target to take the bait, but before that he focuses on practicing his body refining technique. Soon after, 8,000 warships start approaching him with enemies chanting for Wang's defeat. Meanwhile, Wang charges his supernova blaster gun and fires at the enemies. It turns out whatever ship was in the way completely vanishes from the existence. Wang thinks that this gun should be a Golden-class gun because more than 2/3 of the enemy's warships are annihilated in just one strike. However, the enemies shout to retreat, but their commander says that Dark Rock pretended to be weak to lure them into its trap. The commander then tells his assistant that is the highest commander of royal civilization. He appoints him as the candidate for the next presidency, but the assistant says that this important task only depends on him and he is the one who should leave. However, the commander replies that he failed but his civilization will not disappear, and because this advanced base has consumed most of their resources, he will show him how powerful it is. They starts attacking Wang, but it has no effect on its golden level armor. So Wang uses his supernova blaster again, but it consumes 300 points of energy per shot and its charging time is quite long. The next day, Wang receives a call from Manhwa, saying they have verified the feasibility of the secret technique of growing some strange fruit. Wang realizes that the secret technique for growing clear fruit has been verified, and Zio kept it to himself, not even sharing it with his own daughter. Now that Wang has the information, he decides it's time to deal with Zio. After that, he goes to meet the Baron, who tells him that he will retire because the conflict between the royal family and the local nobles has reached a critical point, and no one knows what might trigger its outbreak. He then adds that he is a pioneering aristocrat of the first generation, and once His Majesty summons him, he will have no choice but to go. Moreover, he suggests that if he takes this opportunity to fake his death and disappear, Wang will inherit the title of Baron. Wang thinks the Baron is a smart man because, unlike him, the Baron is not reborn and has no past life, yet he can still predict what will happen next and act accordingly. However, Wang tells him that he wants to travel as much as possible in the next few years, wondering that once he becomes the new Baron, he will be bound here, which will ruin his plans. Nonetheless, the Baron tells Wang that he will pretend to be sick and hold on for a few more years, so there's no need for Wang to rush off on a trip just yet. After that, Wang shows him the secret information about how to grow clear fruit. The Baron bursts into laughter, realizing that Zio's good days are about to come to an end. Afterward, Wang finally returns to the mining planet again, where people gossip about how he is the only person to rise in rank so quickly on the entire mining planet. Just then, Wang finally arrives on the planet, and Ding asks if he plans to return to the mining planet this time. Wang replies that he mainly wants to relax, But as the heir of Blackstone, he also wants to learn more about the administrative work there. Meanwhile, he orders his ship to upgrade the Resuscitation 2 energy shield, the Naphatron engine, and the maintenance robot. He decides to use this time to upgrade the warship's modules remotely and make preparations for his trip. Back in the present, Ding asks Wang how he has been feeling as the new heir. Wang replies that it feels like a dream come true. Nonetheless, Wang then asks Ding about Ling. Ding explains that because of his position, there are some things she can't learn on the mining planet, so he sent her to intern at the administrative department. After spending some time learning about the administrative work on the mining planet, Wang decides to leave the mining planet and go to mine for a few days. Later, Wang goes on the mining, realizes that according to the exploration report left by the Tiger Merchant Fleet, the 13 zones listed on it may contain titanium crystals, and these zones are located in deep mining area in the asteroid belt with countless dangers. After exploring for a while, Wang finds nothing, no gold, no titanium crystals, and no mithril. He decides that if he doesn't find any titanium crystals in the 7th zone, he will head back and take a break before continuing his search again. Suddenly, his radar detects something ahead, and Wang realizes he has finally found some titanium crystals. After collecting them, he heads back, where a guy asks how his mining went. Wang replies that he didn't find anything too special this time, but he still wants to bring back some unique things as gifts for others. Afterward, Wang resumes mining but finds nothing in the 11th zone. So, he moves on to the 12th zone, where he discovers a large number of energy crystals. Just then, one of the crystals scratches his ship, but thanks to its immortal function, it automatically restores the damaged parts with a recovery speed of 6. Suddenly, his ship alerts him that there are high-level energy crystals ahead. He didn't expect to find such valuable crystals in this zone. Afterward, Wang moves to the last marked zone, but his inspection radar detects more than 100 massive gravitational turbulences in the area. As he observes for a while, he notices multiple nests, far more than usual, which seems abnormal. However, with his current level of dark rock, he can't go in there to explore, so he decides to go back. While taking shower, he realizes that he got 28 titanium crystals this time and dark rock has enough source points now, but he need to think carefully about which modules to strengthen and upgrade next. Later, Wang returns to the Silver Castle, where the Baron asks if the secret technique for growing clear fruit has been verified again and whether it can be confirmed as true. But Wang replies that he should be the one to handle the Shi family. But the Baron replies that as a sick and elderly man, he needs to focus on his recovery, and as for the heir, he should handle the Shi family. Moreover, he tells Wang that he wants him to lead an inspection tour on Purple Jade Planet with his fleet later. After that, he should bring Zio back to the Silver Castle and reorganize the Shi family. Wang wonders that Baron should be worthy of being a pioneering aristocrat of the first generation, and since he revered, he has become increasingly cunning. Later, he sneaks out and pilots Dark Rock for some relaxation. He uses 25 O-Source points and 10 titanium crystals to upgrade his Mirage system. After looking at the system, he realizes that compatibility refers to the progress of further deep binding of the carrier spark in the hull, but when he reaches 100%, it will trigger new features. Afterward, Wang sees 2 battleships from different civilizations fighting each other. He realizes that, with a hull length of just over 300 meters, Dark Rock is tiny compared to these 2 massive ships, and he can't take any action now in case they detect him. The weird-looking ship launches an attack on the biological battleship, causing immense damage to a part of it. Wang notices that with enhanced defense, the biological battleship might have had a better chance of withstanding the attack. The biological battleship only loses a small part of its surface layer, but its interior is completely damaged. The weird-looking battleship attacks again, but the biological one manages to dodge using its string-like extension. Then, the biological battleship moves in for another attack, but the robotic one quickly activates its energy shield. In response, the biological battleship releases pollution, completely contaminating the energy shield. At first, it seems like the biological battleship is losing, but then it extends its strings and completely wraps around the other battleship. However, the enemy ship uses its blades to cut the strings and then fires at the biological battleship. Seeing this, Wang realizes it's his chance to escape because the rhombic warship is shooting red beam spears, each with an attack strength of over 120 points, while the green energy emitted by the biological battleship is a pollution attack with a strength of over 80 points. However, now it looks like that the biological ship is completely lost, but then it just charges straight at the rhombic ship and cracks it completely. But the rhombic shoots him with red beam and it cracks itself as well. Wang realizes that both battleships have suffered heavy losses. Afterward, he decides to turn off his stealth mode and head toward the battlefield. Just as he enters, he sees that the biological ship is still alive, but he quickly uses his supernova attack to completely destroy it. He then retrieves a purple-class module and a golden-class module from the wreckage. He then thinks about how the crown of the Interstellar Hunter can increase the attack strength of all weapons by 10%, and anyone marked by him will never be able to escape. He also considers that the biological essence is a disposable module, useless for the warship and not directly absorbable by humans. However, it can still affect a person on the ship through the carrier spark. Afterward, Wang decides to head to Purple Jade Planet. Then, Chen's son calls him, saying that the head of the Zhang family, one of the major aristocratic families on Purple Jade Planet, and Sun Hu, the leader of the new generation of the Shi family, are waiting to meet him. Right then, Zhang shows up on the call with some other Beyblader-type guy. Wang starts wondering if this guy is Sun Hu, and if he is, then where is she? He knows that Sun Hu is a really skilled person who can lead a whole fleet. In his past life, Sun Hu became famous pretty fast after the Shi family switched sides to Astra Square. On top of that, the warships and fleet he commands are known for being super accurate when they shoot. However, the guy hesitates before replying, so Wang interrupts him, saying he will go visit Zio himself now. The man returns to Zio, claiming that Wang has evil intentions toward him. But Zio replies that it's only because he didn't speak in Wang's favor at the banquet that day. Zio then warns Wang not to go too far, reminding him that this place belongs to the Shi family and that he has no right to act recklessly. He then instructs Sun Hu to attack any fleet that dares to cross the line. However, Wang thinks that this geezer is used to being arrogant as their aerial fortress is a fixed target and has less combat power than a spark warship without any module. Just then, Sun Hu calls Zio and says that Wang is a strong opponent, and the fleet he brought with him has way more combat power than theirs. But Zio tells him not to worry since Wang's last victory against the two fools from the Wang family only happened because he had the advantage of surprise and better information. He then adds that if Sun Hu wins, then he will be recognized as the top talent in Blackstone and will have another chance to propose making him a candidate to be the heir. Afterward, Wang thinks about how he has heard a lot about Sun Hu, and now it seems like Sun Hu is confident in his skills, but does he know what happened to the last person who challenged him? However, Sun Hu responds by saying he wants to see Wang's bravery for himself. Then, he announces that he is officially challenging Wang to a one-on-one ship duel. He will represent the silverfish from the Shi family, and Wang can choose any warship from his fleet. Wang accepts the challenge and selects Steelbone as his warship. Later, Sun Hu realizes that the details about Steelbone are no longer a secret, especially after his one-on-one battle with Jinkyu. However, he thinks that in this close-range fight, Steelbone will take the lead with its zigzag leap and could approach Silverfish at any moment. But as long as he can hold out during the first wave of the boarding battle and escape from his ship, his main gun will secure his victory. Meanwhile, Wang tells Ma Da that they are almost at the dueling spot and puts Zhu in charge. Then, Zhu and Sun Hu rush at each other. Inside the control room of Silverfish, Sun Hu thinks about how, in artillery warfare, even if Steelbone decides to spread my particles and use its long-range main gun, Silverfish will still have the advantage. Sun Hu believes he has a natural talent for shelling, far better than most people, and that he was born with this skill. In the control room of Steelbone, Zhu activates the zigzag leap module and asks Wang if he wants him to finish them off. But Wang replies that Sun Hu is a talented man, so they should capture him alive. However, if Sun Hu does anything that threatens his life, then Zhu has permission to kill him. Afterward, Sun Hu keeps attacking Wang and his ship's shield durability stays at 80%. He notices that Steelbone's long-range main gun isn't very strong, and while its hit rate isn't bad, Silverfish has the same accuracy. This means the real advantage will come from the power of the single-attack main gun. Just then, Wang's ship activates the zigzag leap and Sun Hu quickly orders his crew to get the shock defense ready and prepare the stormtroopers for battle. Then, the stormtroopers of Sun Hu manage to get inside the Steelbone, and Sun Hu knows that most of the exoskeleton armor provided to the stormtroopers on Silverfish is also green class, and as long as he can hold them, the Silverfish will break free from the magnetic traction. But just then, a strong fighter appears out of nowhere and defeats every single stormtroopers of Sun Hu. Afterward, Wang calls Zio and tells him that Sun Hu has lost, and the moment Zio hears those words, he collapses to the floor. Then, Wang orders the guards to bring Zio, announcing that he is no longer fit to lead the Shi family. From now on, Zio will step down and spend the rest of his life in Silver Castle, while the eldest collateral son will take over as the new head of the Shi family. But more importantly, Sun Hu will now serve as Wang's attendant, and Silverfish will be added to Blackstone's guard fleet. Hearing this, Zio panics, arguing that the trade of clear fruit is a major part of Blackstone's economy, and that only he knows how to grow it. but Wang calmly presents him with a book containing the exact methods for planting it, completely shocking him. Later, they head to the Zhang family, where Wang tells the old man that he just wants to finish his task by taking Xian back to Blackstone planet, but the elder introduces him to a nerd named Shiji, who is the most outstanding scholar among the younger generation of their family. Wang starts to wonder about this boy, realizing that he is just as talented as Sunhu. In his previous life, the Shi family had disrupted the Zhang family and taken control of the entire Purple Jade planet. However, it was Shiji who stepped up as the head of the family and found a new path for the Zhang family's growth in Red Leaf. 2 months later, Wang is relaxing on his ship, thinking about how the Baron has fully recovered from the microbial infection, yet he still told the public that he was bedridden. Meanwhile, Wang spent the past 2 months and over 1,000 source points training his body refining technique. After all that effort, he has finally reached the perfect medium stage of the technique. Even so, he wonders about how, after reaching the perfect medium stage of body refining, another advanced function of the auxiliary system unlocked the carrier-borne module. This new module needs 24 hours of activation time to work properly. Afterward, Wang activates his Mirage system and steps into the battlefield of another universe. However, he comes across an average interstellar civilization with mediocre military strength. Despite that, it has managed to survive for over 30,000 years. Before making any moves, he decides to observe a virtual image of the nearby areas. While scanning, he spots a medium-sized black hole and immediately instructs Dark Rock to keep a safe distance from it. Afterward, Wang thinks about how the Scorpio Death Ray is just as powerful as a battleship's main gun, with terrifying firepower modules. On top of that, the Scarlet Disaster has an extremely dangerous effect. However, the Black Hole Cruiser stands out with its incredible defense, making it the hardest to take down. It can reduce the damage from these powerful attacks by up to 80%, making it a nearly unstoppable force. But if his warship has a strong enough hull and powerful engines to support the gravitational field shield, he might be able to navigate within the black hole's gravitational range. Additionally, he realizes he can use the remaining time to his advantage. Before the 24-hour limit of the battlefield in this universe runs out, he plans to steer Dark Rock into the gravitational range of the black hole and head straight toward Minoris. However, he knows it's too risky to time his entry perfectly, and even if he somehow makes it inside, he isn't sure if he can successfully get Dark Rock to land on Minoris. Suddenly, he sees some forces entering in the black hole, but Wang thinks that they might have done something like this before. He tells Dark Rock to hack into the system of Lamba. Meanwhile, in the Lamba civilization, they discuss how, after countless attempts, they have finally discovered a way to open the treasure house. They placed gravitational field bombs at the edge of the black hole's gravitational field. Once the bombs are detonated, a new gravitational field will be created, which will then influence the gravitational pull of the black hole. Moreover, after spending a fortune on these expensive gravitational field bombs, the Lamba civilization is now on the verge of bankruptcy. They are relying on this battleship to turn their luck around and make a fortune. However, another lizard-like figure points out that their battleship's shield is weakening and will completely collapse within the next 8 to 10 hours. Afterward, they set off the bombs and rush toward the black hole, hoping for success, but it turns out their plan has completely failed. Afterward, Wang panics upon realizing that Minoris not only failed to escape the black hole but is also being pulled even deeper into its grasp. Determined to help, he speeds up Dark Rock and rushes toward the breakage site. Luckily, he reaches Minoris just as it is about to cross the edge of the black hole. Without hesitation, he removes the Reformer Alliance contract and consumes a high-level energy crystal, upgrading the loading modules to have 0 activation time. Just then, the ship completely splits in half and starts falling into the black hole. Wang realizes that the gravitational force pulling on Dark Rock is getting stronger. If he hadn't reached the medium level of the body refining technique, he might have already started coughing up blood from the intense pressure. Without wasting time, he activates the Black Hole Cruiser option. As he navigates through the system, he finally discovers another module, the Scorpio Death Ray. With no other choice, he quickly leaves the battleship. Afterward, he realizes that he got a fortune from the battlefield in this universe, and both of them are very valuable. As Dark Rock can't be equipped with Scorpio Death Ray now, but with Black Hole Cruiser, Dark Rock can travel safely in Northern Stellar region. Afterward, he gets back to the castle and Baron tells him that after receiving the news he had no choice but to change his itinerary. It turns out that it's a call-out. The one who issued this is the Archduke of Northland, the nominally supreme commander of the Northern Stellar region. Because of increasing number of Star Bandit groups, He decides to gather the power of various nobles in the northern stellar region to launch a large-scale attack on star bandit groups. In Wang's previous life, this was far-reaching event as the Archduke of Northland gathered the power of most nobles in the northern stellar region under the pretext of wiping out the star bandit. In addition, the Archduke had another goal. At first, his powerful fleet, made up of various battleships, successfully wiped out many star bandit groups. However, living planets are unique, as they are actually massive living organisms that resemble planets. These colossal creatures feed on free cosmic energy and roam through space, always searching for regions rich in it. Wang then wonders about what happened next as soon after. The Archduke gathered a group of elite soldiers and re-entered the Weijing galaxy. There, he managed to kill the living planet and use it to evolve his ship into a powerful battleship. But in his previous life, the Baron had responded to the call-up by sending Blackstone and 2 Spark warships. However, after encountering the living planet, Blackstone was badly damaged, and the 2 Spark warships were completely destroyed. Now, the Baron tells Wang that this is the first call-up issued by the new Archduke of Northland since taking over the title. He adds that if the Archduke's goal is to wipe out the Star Bandit groups, then joining him wouldn't be a bad idea. Wang tells him that the northern stellar region is so vast that it will take time for the nobles to gather their warships and send them to Northland. He advises the Baron to wait and see if they can gather more detailed information. Then, he informs the Baron that he needs to head into the depths of the mining area because something seems off there. Afterward, he arrives at the 13 zone marked in the exploration report and activates the Black Hole Cruiser, Shield, and Mirage system while advancing deeper into the mining area. However, instead of finding a black hole or a space crack, he comes across a massive crystal-time gravitational turbulence. Curious, Wang activates the wide area ultrasound detector and identifies a purple cursor, which is inferior to titanium crystals. Despite this, he decides to extract all the titanium crystals from the massive structure. Wang then collects the photonic stone and puts it in the dark rock, since he doesn't have a special container to isolate its connection. He decides to let dark rock absorb it. Afterward, Wang comes across a black hole on his way, so he quickly instructs Dark Rock to leave the zone at full speed. As he makes his escape, the system notifies him that the carrier Spark is undergoing an upgrade, and its new feature is being generated. Later, Wang reflects on how the Spark Destroyer evolved into a Spark Cruiser. After absorbing a low-level treasure, the Spark transformed into a special carrier module. Following its first evolution, the carrier Spark was upgraded from ordinary to green class, and at the same time, a random feature was generated within the auxiliary system. Afterward, Wang meets with the Baron, who informs him that he used his connections to gather intel from the Archduke of Northland's direct fleet. He learned that their recent movements are focused on locating the whereabouts and gathering spots of various star bandits. However, Wang responds that if the Archduke has another hidden agenda, it would be impossible to obtain such information through normal channels. Wang further informs him that he heard some rumors on the grapevine, which related to the abnormal movements of the Northland. It turns out that a small group discovered a living planet on the edge of Weijing Galaxy, and they tried to conceal the news and sell it in the capital for good price. Hearing this, the Baron gets excited, recalling that the former Archduke of Northland died on the battlefield in another universe, and even his ship was destroyed. With the new Archduke taking over the title, he hasn't had time to upgrade his own ship. The Baron then adds that the Archduke has another motive. On the surface, he appears to be focused on eliminating the Star Bandits, but deep down, he actually wants to use the power of the nobles in the northern stellar region for his own agenda. However, Wang tells him to let him go, but Baron wonders how he can go with Steelbone to a living planet. But Wang explains that everyone knows he is ill, and Blackstone is just a small territory with only 3 Spark Destroyers. He says they need to find a middleman who can persuade the official in charge of statistics, and then the problem will be solved. However, Wang adds that this time, he will be piloting Silverfish, but the Baron asks why he isn't choosing Dark Rock. Wang simply replies that he doesn't have Dark Rock anymore. Later, Wang goes to Dark Rock with Mada, and once they enter the ship, Wang asks him if he would like to be the intelligence officer of Dark Rock. But Mada points out that there is one condition in the contract. He cannot disclose any information about the ship. However, Mada wonders why Wang didn't include a clause about not betraying him. Wang calmly replies that he doesn't like to be rough as a leader who would rely on forceful methods to secure the loyalty of his subordinates. He prefers to inspire loyalty in a different way, and then Mada accepts the contract. How long do you think it will take for Wang to turn his junk heap into a god-tier destroyer? Comment Warship if you'd like a part 2 of this epic saga. Make sure to subscribe the channel for similar content.